The Mace Fingan and Donick 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you. I hope everybody is having a wonderful start to their Thursday. Derek, did you run afoul of the law on your way here today?
No, me and the law, we made nice.
Mission accomplished.
Yes, so they didn't see me. I didn't see them. So there we go.
So you just avoided them.
Exactly. Or they avoided me. One of the
Either
other.
way.
I tell you one thing, I didn't get on the highway. I did not do that. Took the side streets. So I think it may have been more of me avoiding them than them avoiding me.
Lesson learned. Go to the side streets.
Exactly. There we go. So no running afoul of the law today.
Yet.
Yeah, I don't plan on it either.
Let's not put that bad juju out there. All right?
Yeah, I don't plan on it either. I plan on sticking to the script for the next couple of days.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Willie, any deer in your backyard?
No, but a friend of mine from the neighborhood has been talking about this dynamic duo
Of deers?
I believe mother and child
Ooh.
patrolling. If any East Nash dwellers would like to provide insight on this, have they seen this duo of deer running around East Nashville? I laid eyes on them the other night, and I was not hallucinating or anything, because others have said, yes, I've seen these. Not quite the reputation of Ed, the zebra, right? It's not quite as
You think
stark and like, wow, a zebra. Like you're not
they're
not like that
jealous?
when you see a deer. But in our neighborhood, like we're really like city neighborhood. Look, we are not near the woods. Like Shelby Park is a good couple miles from.
You are closer to the woods than I am.
I'm closer to Shelby Park than you are,
but you're still
it's
far
a
from
good
the
ways.
zoo.
We're on the front edge. Like we're close. Like you could walk to.
Hey,
You
man,
can walk to.
that
Nissan
used to be
Stadium.
their hood. That used to be their hood. That's where they roamed.
Yeah, so
That's
like
where they
it's
roam.
the
Yeah.
instincts, like
It's
the
instinct.
ancestors.
They're like, where's
Yeah.
mom's house, man? I thought we were trying
And
to
then,
find mom's.
and then they got mad. The zebra, they got jealous. They want some pub too.
The rumor that I heard, I cannot confirm this, was somebody fed them or something. Like,
Ooh,
and
yeah.
maybe that's what keeps them coming around.
It's
Yeah.
like seagulls at the beach. I had to tell Arlo that last month when we went to the beach. He was having a snack, and there was a bird just hovering above Arlo, knowing that this little toddler was going to drop something. And I said, Arlo, don't drop the food. And he goes, why? I see, you see that bird up there? There's going to be more if you drop that snack. And he was very careful not to drop the snack. So maybe that's what it's like. Maybe somebody fed the deer, and now they're patrolling.
They want more food.
I think they're patrolling.
They
I think
want more
that's a good
food.
term. But I want any East Siders, if they have any information about the deer,
Mhm.
the mom, and I don't know if it's a guy or girl, the youngster. But
Let us know.
Let us know.
It's like America's Most Wanted.
Yeah.
Call in. Tip line.
Got nothing against the deer. I want to see it turn out well for the deer. Just maybe lead them back to the woods or something like that.
So I'm sure you guys saw this because I sent it to you. So unless you're ignoring my texts, you definitely did see it. Apparently, Hugh Grant fell asleep at Wimbledon yesterday. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Hugh Grant. He's probably in your girlfriend's or wife's favorite movie. He's the charmingly befuddled British guy. He's in Notting Hill. He's in Bridget Jones's Diary. He's in Love Actually. And apparently he nodded off at Wimbledon yesterday in the royal box. Like, that's where royalty sits, of course, and celebrities. And of course, Hugh Grant, a well-known celebrity. And there was footage of him. Apparently he was wearing sunglasses, so we don't know for sure.
I was going to say, has he denied that this happened?
He hasn't, but he was leaning a little bit. You know what it's like when you're on a plane or on a bus or in a car and you're leaning the person sitting next to you, they're leaning just a little bit. You don't know if they're asleep. They may be wearing sunglasses, but I think he was clearly asleep. And it made me wonder if any of us can relate.
Mm-hmm.
Have you or anybody you know, have they fallen asleep at a sporting event before? Now, I've fallen asleep in a movie theater. I think that is something that people can relate to.
Mm-hmm.
I've never fallen asleep at a concert. But falling asleep at a sporting event, I think it takes a special kind of tired to fall asleep at a sporting event. Now, to be fair to Hugh Grant, tennis is the one sport I think that, and perhaps golf. Although golf, you're standing. If you're in the what is it called, the gallery, you're standing, so it's harder to fall asleep standing up. But tennis, it's quiet. There's the hushed murmur of the crowd as they're talking quietly, and the sound of the ball going back and forth. It may lend itself to falling asleep. But can anybody relate? Do you know anybody, or have you fallen asleep at a sporting event
But
before?
first of all, I'm not giving Hugh any slack about being at a tennis match. This is Wimbledon, man. You're in the royal box. You cannot even have any blood vessel in your body having you think about your falling asleep. Come on. You can't fall asleep at Wimbledon.
There's some cocktails, man.
It's not even the first round. Like, this is the quarterfinals.
Come on,
This is a big match. He's a Brit. This is it.
During a Novak Djokovic match as well.
Yes.
This wasn't just two
one of the
randos
greatest
playing.
of all time.
Yes.
Willie, you should understand better than Adam over here. Okay? You should know this. And our listeners, they should know this. When you get to a certain age and you've had a few cocktails, typically what happens?
You can get a little sleepy.
Absolutely. There we go. You can get sleepy. And I'm sure that is exactly what he
drinking.
did.
You
Exactly.
can get a little sleepy.
That's why he put the sunglasses on. And he had sort of the lean to him. So, he can deny it if he want to. But if I was him, I would not confirm nor deny whether I was up or not. I wouldn't, because you can't tell unless you zoom. Now, here's the part that he got to worry about. Hopefully his publicist zoomed in on his eyes, because those glasses are blue. They seem to be blue. So with a blue tint, sometimes you can see through the glasses if you get up close up to him. So he needs to go over that and see if they can see his eyes. If they can't see his eyes, then, just say, I'm not going to confirm nor deny it. Keep the story going. Why? Because then you become front page on everybody, and everybody's talking about you now.
You get the hype.
Exactly. There you go.
Especially those London tabloids. They love that stuff. Is that a big thing? Are they headlines? I know you like to look up at the headlines sometimes.
He was all over BBC yesterday.
Okay.
I will tell you that. And I haven't looked at the London tabloids. But again, he has that little lean going on where it's clear that he's not all there. Maybe he's a little sleepy. Maybe he was just resting his eyes for a moment.
That's what my mom used to tell me. I'm just resting my eyes, boy.
The closest I have ever come to falling asleep at a sporting event. And by the way, this was in the middle of the day, right? In England. It wasn't at night. I don't know the exact time it was over there at the time, but the closest I ever came.
He sleep. He sleep.
Okay, you're looking at the picture right now.
Because
I saw the picture. I was like, "There's no way."
Because I can see if he had a cell phone in his hand, he could say, "I was just looking at a text right there." But yeah, he sleep. He got the thumbs crossed, the legs are crossed. I'm sure. Oh yeah, he sleep.
What he needed
was
a pair of those.
A pillow. That's what he needed.
What he needed was a pair of those Homer Simpson glasses with the pupils drawn on, with the pupils drawn on them, so he sleeps, but it looks like he's awake when he was at jury duty, I think it was. But the closest I've ever come, and I have pulled up the box score from this, was Game 3 of the 2002 Stanley Cup final between the Detroit Red Wings and the Carolina Hurricanes, a game that went to triple overtime. I was trying to find out exactly what time the game ended. I roughly remember it was after 1 a.m. Eastern time. I'm pretty confident in that. So I would have been 13 at the time. My dad and I went down to the game. We drove down from Virginia to Raleigh to go to the game. And I vividly remember this, and David James, if you will. There was a song that they kept playing at the Hurricanes game that kept me awake. It was the one thing that kept me awake. David, if you have it, let's just set the scene here for a moment. We'll get to it. Here it comes.
I can see this being your song, Adam. I can see it being your song right now. You got up, you start dancing.
The theme song from Mortal Kombat. I'm waving my towel. I'm trying to stay awake. It's the only thing that's keeping me going. At 13 years old.
Oh my
Oh, yeah.
goodness.
That takes
Yep.
me back. Those were the days. But that's the closest I ever came. But I was A, 13 years old, and B, it was past my bedtime. But I stayed awake to watch the Red Wings win Game 3 on a triple overtime goal from Igor Larionov. That's how far
Ooh.
back you have to go.
That was a great team pre-salary cap that Detroit assembled, and they had an enormous payroll. I mean, huge. They had guys like Luc Robitaille and Brett Hall and Chris Chelios. Guys were way past their prime, but they just added as secondary pieces, and they were pretty dominant. They were pretty dominant.
Dominik Hasek in goal for the Detroit Red Wings in that game.
Yeah, another guy towards the end of his prime, right? They had gotten him away from Buffalo by then.
I did tell this story last week on the show. I think it was last week that a few years ago, I went to Las Vegas to cover a Predators Golden Knights game. My wife came along. My parents met us there. We went to a Michael Jackson Cirque du Soleil performance. We only could get tickets to the late show. So I believe it started 9:30 local time. I had flown in that day, had the jet lag, so I was getting pretty sleepy. And at one point, I nodded off during the performance. And when I woke up, it was during Thriller, and the performers were in the crowd in zombie garb and makeup doing the Thriller dance. One of whom was right in front of me. It freaked me the hell out when I woke up to see this zombie gyrating in my general direction. I don't know if that zombie picked up on it, but I felt like they were a little aggressive. Maybe they were upset that I had nodded off during their performance.
I think that's very possible.
Yeah,
They
that could have
identified you.
been. Yeah.
They identified you. That guy's falling asleep. What would show him?
We're going to get him right now.
It's a good thing he wasn't there.
Exactly.
He'd have been toast. Those zombies would have just taken him.
Oh, goodness.
Hair Metal Henry on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHundy.com, says, I fell asleep at one of my daughter's soccer games, and I was the coach.
Oh, Lord.
Must have been a
Hair metal.
rough Saturday.
Yes. Who? You were the coach and you fell asleep. That is a feat that I don't think many can accomplish.
That's tough.
You are the coach and you
Was he the head coach or at least the assistant?
Yeah, if you're an assistant coach, were you just a volunteer coach or were you the actual person telling the kids what to do?
And were they
formation-wise?
5-year-olds or what age range is
Yeah.
this?
Josh on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHundy.com, said, my wife and I fell asleep at the drive-in, woke up around 4 a.m. and was the only car in the entire parking lot.
Oh, man.
And
they
this
ain't
place
knocking
was
the
not
window?
in the best neighborhood. Trunk open, keys in the ignition, our belongings laying everywhere, and car seat on top of the car. This is when we decided drinking at the drive-in is not a good idea.
Oh,
No
wow.
kids with us, though. Probably why we got some decent sleep for once, LOL.
So
Oh,
nobody,
man.
no employees at the drive-in. They just, you guys okay?
Yeah, all right.
You guys all right?
Theater is closed.
Everybody's gone.
Joey from Bellevue said he went to the Titans versus Jets game at MetLife with his son and uncle in 2021, and his uncle fell asleep.
Oh,
Was that the
wow.
game where Zach Wilson actually had a good game
Probably so.
against the Titans?
We can assume yes. We can just assume yes. It is hard to fall asleep at a game. It really is. That game either has to be completely boring or whoever fell asleep really didn't want to go, but they end up going anyway and they just lost interest in the game. But it's hard to fall asleep at a sporting event. It's easy to do it at a concert or something like that because I've seen it done. I've done it. My son fell asleep. No lie. He fell asleep at a Justin Timberlake concert with his sister and his sister friend dancing right next to him. I'm sitting there, everybody screaming and yelling. This little kid is right next to me, sound asleep. He doesn't hear anything.
For a JT concert?
A JT, absolutely.
That's impressive.
Yeah, very impressive. Very impressive.
I think the day drinking is the key. I think
Yeah.
that's probably the number one. You know, if we were playing Family Feud,
Mhm.
name a reason you would
go.
fall asleep at a sporting event.
Day drinking. Ding, ding, ding,
Ding! Number one. I think that's number one. Show me day drinking.
Ding.
Michael in Clarksville says, left for Talladega at 1 a.m., then started drinking before passing out during the race. So there you go.
Oh, wow. See, but he passed out because he had consumed a lot of alcohol, not necessarily that it was boring or anything.
I still want to hear a press conference from Hugh Grant and get some
Yeah.
questions. Like, Hugh, what were you thinking? What
Hugh.
happened? Did you drink
Just
too
tell
much?
the truth, man. I had
Yeah.
a few cocktails and Hugh was what, 61, 62? He doesn't look it, but
He's 64.
yeah, 64. So yeah, he has a right to fall asleep. And shoot.
He's an old man.
Exactly.
Quickly, unrelated, Wes from Hermitage texts in and says, today, Wes from Hermitage is actually Wes from the Sugar Sands in Destin. And I have you guys on the loudspeaker. Everybody at the beach hates the Titans, so this is fun for me. All I see is Jags flags. Let's talk about how bad Jacksonville is. Volume on max.
Titans, 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 Titans.
If you're
Tennessee.
listening, your coach is cringy as hell, Jacksonville fans.
Yeah, we're going to beat y'all. We're going to beat y'all in Jacksonville. We're going to beat y'all here in Nashville. Mark that, okay?
Stamp it.
One texter said, I fell asleep at CMA Fest in the nosebleeds and I woke up to Lil Nas X and Billy Ray Cyrus singing Old Town Road.
Wow.
That song was pretty big back in the day.
Yeah, it was huge. How do you? Oh, wow. I'm pretty sure that had alcohol involved in it too.
Probably.
Yeah.
615-737-1025. If any of you have ever fallen asleep at a sporting event or know somebody who has fallen asleep at a sporting event after Hugh Grant nodded off at Wimbledon yesterday, let us know. 615-737-1025. Before we go to break, do you guys mind if I'm petty for just a second?
Go ahead.
Go right ahead.
As I told you, Derek, recently, there's nothing better than a well-timed I told you so. So last week, it wasn't last week, it was Monday. On Monday, we started the show talking about Joey Chestnut in the Nathan's hot dog eating contest. And we received multiple texts. Why are you talking about this? Nobody cares about Joey Chestnut. Check the ratings. According to according to Front Office Sports, Joey Chestnut's return to the Nathan's hot dog eating contest drew 1.62 million viewers on ESPN2. It's the most watched contest in 11 years and up 95% from last year's when Chestnut was barred from competing. So to all of you who texted in and made fun of me for caring about Joey Chestnut, like one of the 70 and a half hot dogs and buns that Chestnut consumed on July 4th, you can take that take and shove it down your pie hole. 615-737-1025.
Joey.
Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com.
Is he the pie eating champion as well?
Is
Is that why you said pie hole?
I was going to say cramming up your cram hole of floor, but I think the cram hole is a different hole. And I don't think he puts hot dogs up there, at least to my knowledge. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, Derek needs a minute.
This is a kid's show.
That's why I said pie hole.
Initially.
Coming up next, which college athletes would have been the most profitable if NIL went into effect 25 years ago? An interesting list on Fox Sports that we'll get to coming up next. 615-737-1025. Derek, get a grip, man. The Porchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix is coming to the Nashville Superspeedway Labor Day weekend, and 1025 The Game has your chance to win VIP tickets to the IndyCar race. Text in the keyword race, RACE now, to 615-737-1025 to be entered to win a pair of VIP tickets. For more information on the event, visit MusicCityGP.com.
Happy Thursday, everyone. This is Derek Mason, and you excuse me, and you've heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff over at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a resolution. Just shed some extra pounds only to face disappointment. But I got some good news here. Because at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and you only. They did it for me. They will do it for you. Okay. So here's what you got to do. You got to connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today. We want to get on this today. Before the holidays come around, we want to make sure you get to your optimal and desired weight. Okay. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
.1025 The Game is teamed up with Pella Windows and the Nashville Humane Association for a puppy pet adoption this Saturday at Pella, 277 Mallory Station Road in Cool Springs from 10 to noon. For more details, visit theGameNashville.com/events. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Before we get to our next topic, Gino on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. I fell asleep at our friend's Catholic wedding. Really bad when you get the priest trying to wake you up on the microphone because you missed your cue to get up and read. Mix in the fact that I have stage fright. Epic fail.
He was a reader and he fell asleep before
man.
his time. Like I could see like just chilling out after you've done the reading. You're like, that's over with. No, people get a little nervous sometimes. He didn't. He fell
missed
asleep
his cue.
before?
Yes.
Was he on like some
It was too
medication?
long. Weddings are too long sometimes, man. It should be
true.
10 minutes max. I do. Kiss, let's go, let's party. That's it.
I'd be down with that.
That's it.
I think
Walk
that's fair.
in, boom, boom, let's do it. Boom, we're out. That's probably why he fell asleep.
Yeah.
It's too long.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So
I got married in August in a place that didn't have air conditioning. I would have been down with the 10 minute. I had a little sweat problem.
I'm sure it's a big sweat problem.
I'm thinking now of Gary Williams, the ex-Maryland basketball coach from 25 years ago. He would take off his suit jacket, and that thing would be soaked.
Oh, man.
Bruce Pearl, no question.
He would be wearing the long sleeve dress shirt, and he would take off his sport coat, and the arms would be soaking wet, but his chest would be dry, the part that wasn't covered by the sport coat. Very funny. Speaking of college, can you remember a time when athletes weren't permitted to receive profits from their name, image, and likeness? It's a crazy time. Before July 1st, 2021.
Legally,
Yeah, right.
Legally, before July 1st, 2021, college athletes were not permitted to receive profits from their name, image, and likeness. And Fox Sports, Derek brought this to our attention. Fox Sports had a fun story recently, ranking which college football players would have been the most profitable if NIL had gone into effect at the turn of the century. So since 2000, they had 3 writers rank their top 5. The way they did this exercise was all 3 writers were each given a hypothetical $100 million to distribute to their 5 choices, while being asked to rank them from 1 to 5, with 1 being the most profitable. And it's an interesting list. And all 3 writers have different lists. So here is just a sample of the highest paid college football players if NIL existed since 2000. And you let us know if somebody is missing. Michael Vick, Lamar Jackson, Darren McFadden, Julius Peppers, Tavon Austin, Matt Leinart, Tim Tebow, big one in my opinion, Kyler Murray, Trevor Lawrence, Adrian Peterson, Johnny Manziel himself, Reggie Bush, Cam Newton, Vince Young, and Tyrann Mathieu. Those were the 15 players that Fox Sports selected that would have been the highest paid players in college football had NIL existed since 2000. Is there one name in particular that stands out among that group for you two?
Did Cam Newton get on that list?
Cam Newton is on the list.
He made it.
Cam Newton stood out to me because I don't know that they took it this far, but the dynamic that would have been really interesting with Cam Newton and maybe a couple of these other guys, in the way the world works now. But you get on a team that's got another quarterback, because Cam Newton was actually on the Florida campus with Tim Tebow. And he got into some trouble, but I don't think it would have ultimately affected his NIL. But can you imagine Cam Newton hitting the transfer portal?
Oh, man.
With the NIL full board? That would have been, and who knows what Auburn did to get him. They got into some trouble. Remember, there was some eligibility questions that cropped up while he was leading them to a national tournament or national title, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if we can look that up real quick, but there was some thought. I feel like
think it
they
was
were
with
playing
his dad.
There was something
Cam's
about, something he got, in the extra benefit back in those days. Thank goodness we don't have to try to invest those cases. Can you imagine, though, Cam Newton, who was sort of unknown, he would have gotten a huge amount of money.
Well, he was one of the top-ranked
quarterbacks
coming out, but he went to Florida and was sitting behind Tim Tebow. Here's the one that's interesting to me, and it's not necessarily because of his athletic prowess or anything else. Tim Tebow would have been interesting because of his faith. What would he have endorsed? What wouldn't he have? And I know he can't endorse alcohol. Would he? And college players can't endorse gambling. But is there a product that he would not have endorsed?
See, that's one I hadn't even thought about.
Like
that
back
because
then,
you have just what you're going to get paid from a collective of, hey, we got to pay our quarterback or else he's going to leave. But on top of that, a true definition of name, image, and likeness being able to be a pitch man.
But I think
in some form.
I think he would have
2 sources.
Yeah, I think he would have been more like Travis.
Travis Hunter?
Travis Hunter, giving his portion away to the guys that needed it. because he was getting his own money. I think he would have did the Travis Hunter, went down the Travis Hunter route of, giving his portion of his NIL because he was making money, with other corporations. I think that's what he would have done. But I think it would have been interesting to see if he would have, chosen not to endorse a product for whatever reason, because of his faith.
David James just sent this to me. In 2010, Cam Newton faced investigations related to potential NCAA violations during his recruitment to Auburn and his time at the University of Florida. These included allegations of academic cheating at Florida and a pay-for-play scheme involving his father and a recruiter attempting to secure a deal with Mississippi State. While the NCAA investigated, Newton was briefly declared ineligible twice, but was ultimately cleared of any wrongdoing in the pay-for-play scheme.
I remember, I think they were playing Georgia. There was some discussion of whether he would actually be able to play in that game, and they played him. Of course, they ended up winning the whole thing, and nothing came of it. But it used to be able to get a little dicey. There were guys that sat out games for one reason or another. It wasn't AJ. Remember AJ Green, the
wide receiver from
Georgia, really good player for the Bengals. He signed some jerseys or something.
And he got
something
suspended.
Pretty hard. He got suspended
at the beginning of the year. He signed jerseys before camp started, I think. And he ended up getting in trouble. I think missing a few games that year, if I'm not mistaken. Another one, Darren
Who knows
McFadden.
what Johnny Manziel would have done?
Johnny, I mean, he would have gotten in Texas.
He Johnny Manziel.
Yeah, he would have milked
with the money sign. He absolutely would have cashed in.
As much as,
legally.
He probably cashed in anyway. Darren McFadden was another one because I don't think people understand how good Darren McFadden was. Like, he was the receiver, the quarterback, the running back. He was doing things that, we look at guys doing now on offense, whether it be, a receiver being in the backfield a lot, doing these jet sweeps and everything else, or the running back lining up as the, quarterback and taking snaps and throwing the ball. He was throwing the football. He was running it. He was their offense at Arkansas.
I think what people struggle with sometimes when having these conversations is they struggle to separate the college performance from the professional performance. So Darren McFadden did not pan out.
Didn't he get hurt? I thought he got hurt. He had a knee injury, if I'm not mistaken.
He played 10 years in the NFL, parts of 10 seasons, but his career ended with 5,421 rushing yards and 28 touchdowns. So he was a disappointment relative to what we saw in college. So I do think that people tend to combine the two. I think Tim Tebow might be a perfect example. Tim Tebow had a highly celebrated collegiate career and had his moments in the NFL, but because people remember him being a bust for the most part in the NFL, it sort of taints their view of his performance in college. The one on this list that I can speak to from personal experience, and if Jake Lyman is listening, he probably can as well, is Michael Vick. Living in Virginia when Michael Vick burst onto the scene, and he was from my area,
right,
and then went to Virginia Tech, led the Hokies to an undefeated season, went to the college football championship game against Florida State. They lost that game. I can only imagine. I believe he played 2 years at Virginia Tech, so he came back.
And he didn't play his true freshman year. He was backing up because I believe, if I got that right, the first ever Music City Bowl, Virginia Tech played Alabama, and it was brutal weather. It was unbelievable. I was at the game. It was rough. It was a sold-out game, great crowd, and Michael Vick, I think, was a true freshman backing up. So I wonder how that would have affected the NIL.
I believe he came back the year after Virginia Tech lost in the national title game. I have to imagine the money would have been rolling in,
of course,
that year before he went
very
pro.
Interesting, yeah.
So Michael Vick certainly came to mind.
Now, Michael Vick was the local guy, so
Yes.
it probably would have been easier, I think, for Virginia Tech to keep him. I wonder about a guy like Lamar Jackson in a situation where maybe you're at a school that doesn't quite have, for lack of a better term, the war chest.
And Louisville didn't.
Maybe Louisville didn't have what another school might, and somebody seeing Lamar Jackson initially and going, wow, we got to get that guy. You know, the tampering, and I wonder what that dynamic would have been like for an Ohio State or an Alabama, somebody that's got big money.
615-737-1025. Which college football players would have been the most profitable if NIL had gone into effect in 2000? So keep it since 2000. 615-737-1025. I've also come up with 5 college basketball players who would have absolutely raked in the dough if NIL had gone into
How many of them
effect.
played at Duke? 4?
One. One.
Oh, I thought you were going to have 5 Duke players, like just roll them
Nope,
out.
just one. 615, and you'll
Very
see
objective of you.
and you'll see who it is coming up next. 615-737-1025. This fall, live at the Pinnacle at Nashville Yards, Tim McGraw will perform at Trintix's Rock the Cradle. This event is sure to be a great time celebrating a great cause. Proceeds from the event will support newborns and moms at Ascension St. Thomas Midtown. Get your tickets now at rockthecradlenashville.org.
Jay Williams or JJ Reddick.
JJ is an interesting one, actually.
All right, let's tell you about Loan Pronto. If you are looking to change the game when it comes to your finances and you don't like the track you're on right now, maybe some high interest debt is hurting you month in, month out, a car loan that's got a high interest payment. Have you checked it, by the way? Your credit card. Maybe you're saying, why is this credit card bill not getting smaller the way it needs to? I'm paying a bill every month. If you want to change the game and you're a homeowner, use your home's equity. It's yours. Get cash out and consolidate that debt. Knock out and save money each month and make one low monthly payment. One client got $300,000 approved in under 24 hours, paid off the debt, cut their monthly expenses by $1,800. Loan Pronto is A+ rated by the BBB. They have nearly 2,500 5-star Google reviews. Just call them, 615-499-5780, and ask about the Rapid Equity Loan Program because they can get this done quick for you. 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. That's loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781 on approved credit, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
D. Mace Vingan and Donick, 1025, 1063 the game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan. Our question to you at 615-737-1025. Which college football players or athletes would have been the most profitable if NIL had gone into effect at the turn of the century? A couple of texters on our text line driven by Wilson County, Hyundai.com. A lot of mentions for Tim Tebow and Johnny Manziel. Greg offers a couple: Baker Mayfield, Jamarcus Russell, and Nick Chubb. Joe Burrow, another choice on the text line.
Joe Burrow at Ohio
Yeah.
State playing behind Fields. Who was he playing behind that he lost out?
Haskins.
Dwayne
Haskins.
Haskins.
Dwayne
Yes,
Haskins.
yes. And so he could have cashed in. Woo.
Jameis
You think
Winston.
LSU would have paid handsomely? Maybe they did anyway.
Jameis Winston, another
Allegedly.
answer on our text line. I decided to do this exercise with college basketball players, and much to Willie's surprise, I only came up with one Duke player. I wanted to keep
The over-under for me was at least 3.5.
I wanted to keep it to 5. So here are the 5 college basketball players I think would have been huge money makers had NIL had gone into effect before July 1st, 2021. Let's get the Duke player out of the way. Zion Williamson.
Yes.
Zion Williamson would have made so much money. Here are the others: Anthony Davis at Kentucky, Joakim Noah at Florida, Steph Curry at Davidson, and Jimmer Fredette at BYU.
Jimmer Fredette?
Remember
That's a
Jimmer
good
Fredette?
Of course.
one.
Fredette
Yes.
would have cashed in. He never had
Okay,
a
so
great NBA career. He would have made all his money playing at BYU.
There's a couple of guys that have different profiles there, right? Because Steph Curry, for example, at Davidson, can you imagine him doing what he was doing at Davidson and then being courted by schools that would, Davidson would have no chance of
Correct.
keeping him. Zion Williamson would have been all on the front end. You only got him for 1 year. So, and same with Anthony Davis, right? That's a different category. And who was the other guy you mentioned?
Joakim Noah.
Noah was a little bit more of a late bloomer, right? He stayed. Remember the Florida team famously all came back and defended the title. So that's a unique case. I wonder how that would have worked.
But Jimmer Fredette.
Jimmer Fredette, he played in the NBA, right?
Briefly. He did not have a illustrious NBA career.
He played, I think, last year in the Olympics on the 3-on-3 team.
Yes,
right?
he did. He did.
Didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was a great player. Are you saying just the BYU network would have just said, Jimmer, go on a mission, something like that? Like how would they have funded it?
Jimmer Fredette played parts of 6 seasons in the NBA.
I thought so.
Played for Sacramento, New Orleans, I guess, Chicago and Phoenix and the Knicks for 2 games. How about that?
Okay. To me, the highest money maker would have been either Carmelo Anthony
That's a good one.
or Anthony Davis.
More so than Zion?
Okay, so but remember they're
Carmelo's
getting,
in New York.
theory,
That's
they're getting
why.
it. They're getting it all in
playing
1 year.
Syracuse. Yeah, he's getting it that 1 year.
Well, there's a difference between
So that's
New
freshman.
York and
What's
Syracuse.
But what do you measure?
yeah, you're right about that.
Per
Yeah,
year?
absolutely.
You get a
The
big
city-
lump sum in 1 year,
New
or
York City and Syracuse, 2 different.
stay
Yes.
for 4
Yes.
years and get 4 huge paydays.
But
Like that's-
Carmelo only stayed 1 year, so
That's what I'm saying. So so that we have to like Jimmer, who played. Did he play 4 years
I
at
believe
BYU?
he played 4 years at BYU. Yes.
Like the guys that like Noah played at least 3 at Florida, right?
I think Noah played 4.
He might have played 4.
I think he played 4.
But
So
you
got-
look
got
at
some paydays there.
you look at when you look at those 3 guys in particular, Carmelo Anthony, he was the number 1 recruit in the country. So that right there in today's game, that would have gave him, he would have been up already. And then, they probably would have enticed him to come back another year because they had won the national championship with him as a freshman. So just imagine had he stayed another year, because why did guys leave early? Because they wanted to make the money.
Right.
So if Carmelo Anthony comes in, he wins the national championship, that next year, wow, that's a lot of money.
By the way, Jimmer Fredette did play 4 years at BYU.
Anthony Davis is the same way. He stays after they win the national championship. How much money does he get?
And see that I do wonder in the coming years if there are guys that good their first year, how many will stay? Because
Yes.
it did get talked about with Cooper Flagg, right?
For a brief moment.
For a brief moment.
Although nobody
And-
actually believed he was going to come
But
back.
what I was hearing was rumblings of how much they could pay him. And it was a high number to try to say, here's how much it would take to at least make you think about it. It's like 10 or 12 million.
But it would still pale in comparison to what he
What he making now? Yeah, but we're
Yes.
talking back then, And listen, it would have been relative to what NIL wouldn't have been as much as it is now. It have just been relative to the time.
I think it would be more about who's got the first pick or who,
Mhm.
who are the teams you could play for? Is it worth can you develop at the college level?
Mhm.
Will it stunt your growth? Will it put you in a better position to succeed after one more year of college? If you're somebody like Flagg, who was really young,
But it hurts.
certainly that didn't keep him ultimately from saying, I'm going to be the number one guy.
With guys like Cooper Flagg, Anthony Davis, Zion, and I'm just talking about guys that are more recent. We can throw Carmelo Anthony in there anyway, but guys like that, I mean, they're going to get their money regardless. So whether they, can I entice you to stay another year, knowing that you're going to get that money all, regardless. And they were trying, it was more of a thing for a kid to stay an extra year or two in college back then, as opposed to now. Right now, these kids, even if they don't play the whole season, some of these kids are just leaving, because they're projected to be top 15 picks.
One texter mentions Ja Morant at Murray State, which I guess would be along the same lines as Steph Curry at Davidson, right?
No, but Steph Curry, honestly, nobody knew about Steph Curry until the tournament really started. Now, he was a good player, but he just blew up during the tournament. So I don't know if he would have really qualified.
I think he would have been a guy that could probably have, after that tournament performance where they pulled some upsets. Where did they get to the final 8? I think. And he threw his name into the portal.
Yeah, he would have been.
I think he would have gotten a lot of money for that next year. And as it was, he wasn't the first overall pick, right? He was a first rounder, right?
He was
14,
the 9th. I think he was the 9th. I think it was the 9th pick.
That's a good one. And Ja Morant is a really interesting one because, you saw Ja Morant play. They had some great battles with Belmont back then, Murray State and Belmont. You're like, how in the world is this guy at Murray State? But, he has a unique story. And I do want, that would be a really interesting one, is if he'd have gone to a transfer portal for one more year of college, he could have cashed in big.
Oh, of course.
But these are all guys that a lot of these guys we're talking about were
Kevin Durant,
immediate successes in the NBA. And if that's the case, were they really going to stay? There's other guys that there's a crop of college players right now. And I think in some sense in football too, some of these quarterbacks who are staying another year, they're seeing a huge opportunity where they know maybe it's not a slam dunk that they become a great player at the pros. And so let's stay the other year and get a big payday, like Hunter Dickinson at Kansas, Zach Edey at Purdue.
Yeah.
Eventually you get into the league, but when you can dominate college basketball and collect a big paycheck rather than maybe be a second round pick and fighting for a roster spot, where would you rather spend that year?
You know who would have been
I wish Scottie Pippen Jr. would have done that at Vanderbilt. Jerry Stackhouse might still be the coach if he'd have done that.
But he's turning
if Vanderbilt would have paid him. And that was at the time, Vanderbilt was really not in the game. And it was kind of a new thing. That's a really good what if.
I mean, but it seemed to be working out for him. Another one.
He made it.
Yeah, he made it. He's playing well. Tyler Hansbrough.
Ugh.
No. I'm saying it from this standpoint.
I know,
he was a guy that stayed. He stayed all 4 years, didn't he?
I believe so.
Just his name makes me sick.
It makes people mad. He would have been a guy that I think would have chosen to stay an extra year because it would have been more profitable for him to stay, because we all know this. The longer you stay in college, your stock diminishes.
That used to be the rap.
I think it still is
the rap. I think
the longer you stay, it's going to diminish, because you look at all the kids that got drafted this year, last year, they're all first and second year guys, or guys from overseas.
Yeah, 18, 19, 20.
So the longer you stay in college, and I'm looking at a guy like Hansbrough who would have stayed it would have NIL would have benefited him perfectly, because he would have been able to, capitalize on, how he was playing, in regards to money. I think a lot easier than him
That's a
being
good
a
one.
what was he drafted?
He was a first round
He was a first round pick.
and he played in the league, but it was never a great pro.
He was the 13th pick in 09.
Now I'm just thinking about when Gerald Henderson elbowed Tyler Hansbrough in the nose. I know that Carolina won that game, but it's still a great picture to look at even now. But yeah, Tyler Hansbrough. Why did you have to do that to me, Derek?
Hey,
now my
man,
stomach doesn't feel good anymore.
But he's one of those guys that falls in that category perfectly.
I think the sweet spot would be made more money in NIL than in the NBA.
Yes.
That could happen.
Mm-hmm.
And not counting what you might make in the G League or overseas.
Well, that was my point with Jimmer Fredette,
yeah.
right? Jimmer Fredette, I think, would have banked a ton of cash over 4 years at BYU, more than he would have made in the NBA, because he was out of the league pretty quickly. He was never really a consistent player, and then he went overseas for a few years, I think. But it is an interesting exercise. But as we know, it's the era of NIL. And speaking of that, Deion Sanders said something yesterday at, is it Big 12? I get all the conferences mixed up. Big 12 Media Day about NIL that I want to get to coming up next. 615-737-1025. We will continue this conversation coming up next. Willie Dunnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. D. Mace Fingen and Donick 1025, 1063 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service, and we are presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. It's distracting, Derek, the squeakiness.
I got to put some oil in here.
I'm
It's my
trying to
water
do
jar.
some
Get some
reads here.
My
WD-40,
water
man.
jar. You shouldn't be able to hear this. You know why you can hear?
Why?
Because you do not have your headphones fully covering your
Yes,
ears,
that's
young
true.
man.
This is true.
I hastily
It's
put
all
my
your fault.
headphones on. I hastily put on my headphones. So maybe
Some people
you do.
like that. I've seen people that like to have a little bit
I've
of like
tried it. I
natural
can't do
sound.
it.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
Okay, I have adjusted my headphones.
There we go.
We're all here. So we were just talking about NIL. And speaking of NIL, yesterday at Big 12 Media Days, by the way, SEC Media Days coming up next week in Atlanta. Chase and Big Joe will be live from Atlanta all week with SEC Media Days. We will tell you more about that before the end of the week. But Deion Sanders said he'd like to see college football institute a salary cap. Here is what Coach Prime said at Big 12 Media Days yesterday.
And Prime, you were talking about it during your presser about NIL and what these players deserve and how the game is modified to that point. From where you sit, doing it at the highest level in the NFL, how do you believe NIL should be guardrailed now, especially with the revenue share?
I wish it was a cap. You know, like the top of the line player makes this, and if you're not that type of guy, you know you're not going to make that. That's what the NFL does. So the problem is you got a guy that's not that darn good, but he could go to another school and they give him $500,000, and you can't compete with that. That don't make sense. And you're talking about equality, not equality, like equal. I guess it was equality. And all you have to do is look at the playoffs and see what those teams spent, and you understand darn near why they're in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of hard to compete with somebody who's giving $25-30 million to a darn freshman class.
Right.
It's crazy. We're not complaining because all these coaches up here can coach their butts off and given the right opportunity with the right players and the play here and there, you'll be there. But it's what's going on right now don't make sense. And we want to say stuff, but we're trying to be professional. But you're going to see the same teams darn near at the end and with somebody who sneaks up in there. But the team that pays the most is going to be there in the end.
So that was Deion Sanders yesterday at Big 12 Media Days. It should be noted, as David Ubben writes in The Athletic, David Ubben, who was at Big 12 Media Days, on July 1st, the House settlement allowed schools to share up to $20.5 million in revenue in year one with athletes across sports on campus. Some third-party collectives representing schools, however, have signed athletes to contracts before the settlement using money from collectives that doesn't count toward the revenue sharing total.
So the whole thing about the revenue sharing is supposed to level the playing field some, but I think we're all waiting to see whether it actually does that or not, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Essentially, what Deion Sanders is saying is right, and I've talked about this even before, all this stuff. They should have had everything should have been collectively bargained. Because eventually this is where it's going to head. They should have a union, because we're headed down that road. And I know we'll never get there. Well, we thought we would never get where we're at now, and we're there. Don't think they're not going to go further in the name of money. So they should have had a salary cap and whatever to sort of guard yourself from some of these things. Because essentially what is happening now, they've given, the power, what is Power 4? They're giving all those schools $20.5 million. And you have to use it on all of your programs. Now, we know some programs are going to get more than others, and usually it's the football programs, but other schools like Duke or Carolina that are rich in their basketball programs, they may get the bulk of the money when it comes to, the salary cap in quotations. But this is how they circumvent it, and the NFL does it too. Your endorsements outside of that, things outside of that doesn't count toward a salary cap.
I think what's going to end up being the game for a program like Colorado, because I'm sure there are probably coaches at Western Kentucky, Middle Tennessee, Wyoming, some other schools like that who are non-Power 4 going, oh, you think you've got problems, Dion? Let me tell you about the real situation for us. Like, they can't offer any NIL. Dion's he's going to have some money. So what he's going to have to do is be really laser focused and sharp and efficient with the money that he has. That's how you will have a chance to win. And so his point is well taken. There's going to be a certain amount of schools that will always have more money. And it would be like the Dodgers, the Mets, the Yankees in baseball. They're going to always have more money than the A's, the Pirates, the Rays. But you can see, if you're smart with the revenue sharing, you have a chance. You just don't have much margin for error. You got to be really smart with your money. And there are big spending teams that are dumb and lose, but there are also big money teams like the Dodgers who are smart, and they have advantages that they're going to be there every year. And that's what Dion's worried about.
Well, and what he is, I think as I kind of go back over it, he is saying something that can't be done. What he is saying, and I misunderstood it, and as I started to think about it, he is saying cap it for a player.
For a player.
Yeah, a particular
he
player.
wants almost like a hockey system.
He wants,
where
okay,
Colorado and Alabama have the same amount of money to spend on players, and I don't think that's ever going to happen.
It's a player. Like, you can't pay your quarterback $15 million, and I can only pay mine $5 million. It should be across the board. It's never going to be that way.
Yeah, it's not going to be.
That's illegal to do. You can't tell me I can only make $5 million. The NFL, they should be in trouble because that's what happened, and we will talk about that. That's what they tried to do. They tried to cap it. They tried to make sure no one would pay or no one would give a guaranteed contract to a quarterback. Essentially, that's what Deion Sanders is saying. If you are a 5-star quarterback, the number one quarterback coming out, you can't go to Georgia because they're going to pay you $15 million and I can only pay you $5 million. No, Deion wants it to be, I can pay you $5 million and they can pay you $5 million. Now pick. You can't. That's ill. You can't do that. I understand what he's saying. I get it.
Like the NBA used to have a max contract.
Yeah,
kind of
exactly.
thing. I think that's what Deion is thinking.
But
there's
the
a
NBA
couple
is
ways
using
you
as
can do
incentives
it,
now
but
to stay with your team.
He wants a more level playing field that's closer to an NHL hard salary cap.
But he wants it on a player. He wants it on a specific
That's
player.
what he mentioned.
Yeah.
That is what he mentioned. Because he used the example of there are probably some guys that are, as he said, not that good, that are getting paid way more just to stack the numbers for the team that has endless flow of money to spend.
Well, Prime, if he ain't that good, you don't want him anyway.
Well, that's, I think, where I'm going back to. He's going to have to be really smart at identifying who he wants to invest in. That's what it is. These are pros. Yeah. He's got to be like the Tampa Bay Rays. They do more with less than maybe any franchise going, based on they're in the division with the Red Sox and the Yankees, and even Toronto spends way more than they do. But the Rays every year find a way to be decent.
Front office sports rights, most Power 4 schools are expected to allocate 75% of the $20.5 million, roughly $15.38 million, to their football programs. But there are no rules against a school giving 100% of its revenue sharing money to football players. And more importantly, there is no cap on the NIL money players can receive. Although the newly formed College Sports Commission is trying to curb pay-for-play deals that aren't considered market value. Now, here's another point that another Big 12 coach brought up, Mike Gundy, who is still at Oklahoma State. How long ago was I'm a man, I'm 40? That had to be.
Yeah. Now he'd be like, I'm a man, 60. I'm 60.
Right.
It's close.
It's been a minute. Oklahoma State coach Mike Gundy wants a system akin to the NFL's rookie wage scale, which limits contract amounts for first-year players. He said, quote, "We really need to get some guardrails to eliminate the things that are going on from the tampering standpoint, and players that are coming out of high school that are getting way too much money before they've ever made a play on game day. That's how I feel personally about it. I'm okay with paying the players that are producing, and that's the NFL model that I believe that some of what we pattern ourselves out of needs to be that."
But my thing is, if that's what y'all want, collectively bargain it. That's what the NFL did. They collectively bargained that. That's why it's in the CBA. That's why, because older players were getting upset, just like what the article said. These young men are coming in and they're getting paid more than veteran guys, and they haven't proven anything. So the PA said in the NFL, whoa, let's fix this. They got to earn it on the six. Now you're going to get a certain amount, but I'm not going to give you more than the guy that's been here 8 years and has proven he's been an all-pro, but I'm paying you more because, now rookies are getting more money than some of the vets. That's how Deion Sanders wants it. And if you want it that way, collectively bargain it. That's all you have to do, but they don't want to go down that road.
And also, just knowing what we know about the history of college sports, particularly college football and basketball.
Still get away from the cheating.
The schools that have more money will find a way to get around the rules.
Of course.
Right?
No, they will, but
I mean, Colorado could, maybe.
I think it'd be easier to get accomplished what Coach Sanders want accomplished if you collectively bargain it. But if you collectively bargain it, now that opens up a whole can of worms.
Yes. And we're a long way from that.
Absolutely. Right? I think it's going to happen. I do believe within the next 10, 12 years, that will happen in college sports.
Texas Tech is at the forefront of this, according to the Dallas Morning News. Red Raider athletes will make a reported $55 million in name, image, and likeness deals this school year, apparently an NCAA record. And that doesn't count the $5.1 million Tech just guaranteed a Mansfield Lake Ridge offensive tackle over 3 years once he actually graduates from high school. That being Felix, I think it's Ojo. A fully guaranteed 3-year, $5.1 million deal for Texas Tech to beat out several blue blood college football powerhouses for the services of the number 1 ranked recruit in Texas.
I think those schools that in the Big 12, I think would have a lot of schools in this category.
Kid's only 17 years old, by the way, and still has 1 year of high school left.
They're going to have to be creative to try to outfox the SEC and the Big 10, who will always have more money and can do it a little differently, right? They have to think outside the box.
Do you know what they're going to start doing?
And they're going to get burned a few times, right? There's going to be an Ojo every now and then that doesn't
this. Sorry, Derek. Hear this. Ojo is only 17 and still has 1 year of high school left, but he is set to make more money than some NFL players once he starts college, as the minimum NFL salary will be $840,000 this coming season. Texas Tech is taking a risk because if Ojo gets injured, he still gets paid since his deal is fully guaranteed.
Listen, more schools are going to do this and more schools are going to get burned. And when I say more schools are going to do this, not the top flight schools. They're not going to do it. I'm talking about the schools, the Colorados, that think that they got to jump in prematurely to get that guy and lock that guy or that girl in. You giving a guy a 3-year deal worth $5 million, and he's entering into his senior year in high school.
He just got his driver's license, I think.
The next thing is going to be giving another guy a guaranteed contract
out of middle school.
Going into his sophomore or junior year
after
in high
check
school.
Under his arms, and he has hair growing under his arms.
Just so you can lock him in. Just so you can lock him in.
Started shaving.
That's what's going to happen, and it is going to burn a bunch of individuals.
I think the smarter way, I think that is what some of these schools are going to do. I think the smarter way is to find that, and I think Vanderbilt is doing this because even though they're in the SEC, they're still going to get outspent by a lot of teams, but you identify that guy who slipped through the cracks or that guy who's on the way up that was undervalued out of high school, and you can grab him. The problem is the big spenders are starting to figure this out too.
Yeah.
It's like the A's and Moneyball. They were doing things that nobody else did, and therefore Brad Pitt and all those guys in the movie, they started winning a huge amount of games for, a third of the price. The problem is when they started doing that, everybody else started to copy what they were doing. And then the Yankees and all the big spenders knew what they had, all that money, and they had the information.
By the Red Sox. Oh, yeah. Do y'all remember Quinn Ewers when he did not play his senior year, went to Ohio State, and didn't even play at Ohio State at all. So it's like, that happened, and he got like $1 million or something like that for Ohio State.
Mike Gundy also said yesterday at Big 12 Media Days to I believe this is an All on 3 podcast, You've got to restructure your systems and admit players are employees. Then you can build collective bargaining. We've all talked about it, but you have to admit they're employees. You can do it all. You can have a salary cap, and you need an entry level for a high school player coming in because it's not sustainable.
That's the only, and they know it.
To have a fair system, that's what needs to happen.
That's the only way they can clean up this whole mess. But you know what? Because of their arrogance, they're not going to do it. And they're going to wait a little bit longer. It's going to end up biting them in the rear end once again. They should just declare this thing what it is. Listen, if you want to go to school, go to school. But you're here to play basketball, football, baseball, whatever it is. And if you want to go to school, fine with me. That's your prerogative. But you are getting paid $5 million not to get an education. Let's be real about it. I'm not paying you $5 million to get an education. I'm not. If you go, great. Just be eligible. I am not paying you to get an education. So let's just collectively bargain all of this stuff.
I'm looking.
I wonder how you would bargain the education part. Like, do you bargain and say you
Because
do have to go to class, or would you
become-
bargain and say, look, you can opt to go to class or not go to? I don't know how you do that.
I think they'll
you're
get
a professional.
I think they'll get away. I think they'll get around it. I think they would have to add in like a threshold for GPA. Like you got to have a certain GPA, like it is now.
I hope they do stuff
I
like
hope,
that to incentivize kids to actually pay attention while you're in college.
They would have to put that into collective bargaining. But if you want this system to start to fall in order, you got to tell the truth. You got to say these young men and women are employees. That's what they are. But they just so happen to go to school here too as well. So they got to fix it. Once they do that, all the rest of everything else will fall in order. And they know it, but they don't want to make them employees because they know what that means.
I'm trying to find it. I remember seeing this last week. There was a Washington Capitals prospect, because all of the NHL teams, like the Predators did last week, were holding their development camps after the draft. And I think one of the Capitals prospects who's in college was asked what he's majoring in or what he's studying. His answer was hockey. Like that's kind of, that's how it is.
He's honest.
At least he's honest. Oh, there it is. Cole Hudson, who I believe is the brother of Lane Hudson, who plays for the Montreal Canadiens. Defenseman Cole Hudson may be preparing for his sophomore year of college, but his focus is firmly on the ice. Asked about his major at Boston University, Hudson had the simple answer: hockey.
Boston University, yes. But he's telling the truth because, again, man, here's a prime example. If a kid comes in, it's a 4-star, 5-star, and he comes on campus and he turns out not to be worth a damn. But in the classroom, he's killing it. You know what they're going to do? See ya.
Yeah.
See,
Coach, I can't
now,
come to practice.
Especially
I'm doing
now.
really well in my engineering. I've got a test at 3 o'clock.
But especially now, because the rosters are constricted. They're going to say, yeah, you may be performing in the classroom, but you're not performing on the field. You may have to go somewhere else. That tells you right there, you're here to play football or basketball or baseball. You're not here to go to class. That's what it is.
615-737-1025. Your thoughts on Deion Sanders calling for college football to institute a salary cap to level the playing field in college football. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, 'tis the season for hypotheticals. Derek had an interesting idea about a Titans redraft. And as I was thinking about it, there is one hypothetical that came to mind for me that I think might make y'all think pretty hard right about now. And we'll discuss that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. This week's Nashville's best deal is Mellow Mushroom. There's no pizza like Mellow Mushroom Pizza. Stone baked with fresh ingredients, next level imagination, and limitless options for customization. It's a higher order of pizza. You know and love Mellow Mushroom. Now get half off a $30 gift card while supplies last at theGameNashville.com/deals. The gift card is good for downtown Broadway and Franklin locations. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. 'Tis the season for hypotheticals. And stories I like to read whenever I see them, regardless of the league, are redraft stories. So you go back a few years, you look at a draft, and knowing what we know now, how would this draft have shaken out if we had the benefit of hindsight, all that stuff. By the way, as I was doing research for this, I stumbled across this story from April from Pro Football Focus. The NFL's best and worst teams at drafting in the first round since 2020. Using PFF grading and wins above replacement as barometers, we can examine which teams have had the most success with drafting players in the first round, and alternatively, the teams that have had the worst, not the worst success. Can you say that?
The lowest level of success?
Yes, the lowest level of success by those measures. So it will come as no surprise that the Tennessee Titans, according to PFF's wins above replacement model, are the second worst team.
Who's worse?
With Isaiah Wilson, Caleb Farley, Traylon Burks, Peter Skoronski, and JC Latham. Now, it should be noted that
just those first three alone, we got to put you way, way down.
It should be noted that PFF's WAR model heavily skews toward teams that draft quarterbacks. So if you hit on a quarterback, that's going to help your score. So why don't you take a guess as to which team
who's drafted worse?
That's drafted worse than the Titans in the first round since 2020. This does not include this past draft, so Cam Ward is excluded. Between 2020 and 2024, which team had worse performance out of their first round picks according to Pro Football Focus's, I should say, wins above replacement model?
I'll take a wild guess and say Carolina.
Derek?
Man, I would have, not including this year.
Does not include this year.
The Commanders.
The Las Vegas Raiders. Henry Ruggs, Damon Arnett, Alex Leatherwood, Tyree Wilson, and Brock Bowers.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Yeah.
And Bowers is pretty good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ruggs was pretty good before.
Which shows you how bad everybody
how bad
else.
the other guys.
Yeah. I don't even know who Damon Arnett is. Alex Leatherwood sounds like a Jason Voorhees type.
Yeah.
Is he still in the NFL to tackle?
Is that Alex Leatherwood?
Yeah. Is he still in the NFL? Maybe.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
But we know the Titans have sucked at drafting in the first round for a while.
And I still think the last two, not the last two, because we're not using Cam Ward, but the two offensive linemen I still think are going to be over time proven to be good picks. Maybe not great picks, but good picks. The first three are absolute zero, and that's what kills you. It's one thing to get an okay player. It's one thing to get a good player, and I think Skoronski and Latham will be good players. You're hoping for great players. But when you get nothing, like Isaiah Wilson, nothing. Traylon Burks, about as close to nothing as you can get. Caleb Farley, about as close to nothing as you can get.
So according to Pro Football Focus's wins above replacement model, the least PFF WAR accrued by first-round picks since 2020. The worst on the list, the Las Vegas Raiders. Then the Tennessee Titans. Then the LA Rams, but the LA Rams only had one pick in that span. Jared Verse, because, F them picks. The Saints, and then the Colts. So those are the five worst teams according.
Colts?
Yes. Kwity Paye, Anthony Richardson. Is it Latu? I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Anyway, so I was looking at draft hypotheticals. And what I like to do when I do this exercise is I look at where, in this case, the Titans picked, and I looked at the players picked directly behind that player. So here is a hypothetical I thought would make for an interesting conversation. And we only have to go back 1 year. With the 7th overall pick in the 2024 NFL draft, the Tennessee Titans took JC Latham. As we know, started at left tackle. He will be playing right tackle this season. Directly behind him, Michael Penix. Directly behind Penix, Rome Odunze. And here's where I'm going with this. With the 10th overall pick in the 2024 NFL draft, the Minnesota Vikings selected JJ McCarthy. Now, JJ McCarthy suffered a torn right meniscus in the preseason, missed all of last season. He is expected to be the Minnesota Vikings starting quarterback this season. So here's my redraft hypothetical. 615-737-1025. If you could go back, knowing what you know now, would you stick with JC Latham at number 7, or would you draft JJ McCarthy? Because keep in mind, JJ McCarthy, let's say everything else plays out the same. JJ McCarthy suffers an injury in Titans training camp. So Will Levis and Mason Rudolph might still be playing quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. You may still be bad enough to get the number 1 overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft. But if you have JJ McCarthy, you don't need Cam Ward.
It's a tough question to answer because we have to remember that the year before they made a significant investment in Levis, and it was unknown at the time how, because this magic wand of everybody knows everything now. At the time, I think that would have been pretty controversial to have traded up to get Levis in the second round the year before, and then turn around and use a high first-round pick on a quarterback, right? So it's like these movies, like the Terminator, where you send somebody back in time, and you're like, what are the rules when you send somebody back in time? How does it affect everything going forward? Because certain movies, certain stories have a different take on what it means to go back in time. We have to sort of set those rules. You see what I'm saying, right, Adam? Because we didn't spend any time saying, hey, the Titans might pick a quarterback here. At the time, it was Will Levis is your quarterback, and then everything else is what you decide after that, right? So you would have had two guys in the same training camp who you used pretty decent draft capital to get. So that wouldn't have made any sense. That would have been pretty controversial.
Yeah. The one that I look at was the Corey Davis pick. One, and we talked about this. The guy didn't run. He didn't run. He didn't run a 40. He was dealing with a foot injury. He didn't run a 40. Now, he turned out to be a solid player, but with the 5th pick in the draft, you don't take a solid player. You take a game-changing player. So there was already a red flag there that he didn't run. And, people were surprised that he still ended up being a first wide receiver drafted. But just think of this. Now, I know I believe they already had Derrick Henry, because that was the 2017 draft. Or did they get Henry? No. When did Henry?
Derrick Henry was the 2nd round pick
Yeah.
in the 2016 draft, right?
Was he?
Yeah, he was.
Oh, okay. So you could have bypassed Corey Davis, because here are the next 5 picks. Jamal Adams, you end up getting him, but he was done by the time, he got here.
They didn't get that Jamal Adams.
Mike Williams, Christian McCaffrey, John Ross, which was a bust, and Patrick Mahomes, who's sitting there. Now, they wouldn't have got Patrick Mahomes anyway, I believe, because they already had Marcus.
See,
we would have to go back to the Marcus draft.
Right. That's why when we say the magic wand, the redraft, it's a little more complicated than it is on the surface. Because I think it would be easy. Get Mahomes.
Yeah, take him.
But at the time, you weren't looking for a quarterback. You thought you had the quarterback.
Yeah.
Even Christian McCaffrey, later they did get Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
So it's like you wouldn't really want to redraft McCaffrey. You'd have to be selective on who you would take. But I say the Corey Davis one, he always had the rap.
Yeah.
No matter how well he might have
there
played.
There was a red flag there already with him not running.
And I think that's important. If you're being fair, you have to try to go back to that time and say, what did we know at the time?
Yeah.
And we did know that at the time.
No, we did.
No, that's
what
I'm saying.
Yeah.
We did know that he didn't run and he played in the MAC. There were questions. He was an intriguing guy, but I think from the moment they picked him, we're like,
It wasn't like
overall?
this is a great pick. It was like he didn't run a 40. He played in the MAC. How will it translate? Now, again, he turned out to be a solid player, a good player. I thought the Titans should have re-signed him. But you don't draft a guy in the top 5 to be a good to solid player. You just don't do that.
The reason I wonder about McCarthy is I remember this article we referenced a ton leading into the draft from Matt Miller, one of ESPN's NFL draft analysts, ranking recent first-round quarterbacks versus 2025 prospects. And JJ McCarthy was number 11 on this list of 21 versus Cam Ward, who was number 18 on this list out of 21 first-round quarterback prospects since 2020. I think that's right, since 2020. Yes, since round 1 in 2020. So I hear what you're saying, Willie, that the Titans made an investment in Will Levis. But I thought it might have been interesting had they, hey, McCarthy's there. Why not? Why not give it a go? Because Will Levis imploded. You would have JJ McCarthy there. Then theoretically, you wouldn't need to draft Cam Ward with the number 1 pick in the 2025 draft. Maybe you draft Travis Hunter. This is what I was thinking about yesterday. I just thought it was an interesting exercise.
But even, okay, because the year before you draft Levis in the 2nd round. So you draft him that high with anticipation of him being your franchise quarterback. Hell, the owner even, suggested that that offseason. I still don't think even with that, you still don't draft JJ McCarthy. Now they may be someone else that was in that draft that you could have gotten subsequently right after that, but I'm not sure if you're drafting JJ McCarthy still, because yes, the scenario, if it would have worked out like it did in Minnesota, he would have been sitting. We would have saw what we had in Will Levis. You wouldn't have had to draft a quarterback the next following year. You would have had JJ McCarthy. So I understand what you're saying from that standpoint, but I don't even think, they wouldn't have, well, they didn't go that route, but I don't think they would have anyway.
That's the one thing that I don't always like about those redraft articles. It's like, with the number 1 pick, this team takes this guy that was drafted in the 5th round. It's like, I'm looking for a bit more
It's
realism.
Not, yes, you try to be real about it. One thing I looked at, I was looking for, who would you have taken if you were going to take somebody other than Treylon Burks in the 20 after the big trade, right after they make the decision to do the trade, because they made that decision on draft night, right?
Yes.
So it's not like they made the decision the week before and then really looked at the board, but they probably in their minds were already kind of looking around and saying, who would we take? And that's a story that hasn't been told, and I would wonder what those talks were like. Were they always eyeing Burks in the days leading up to the draft, saying to themselves, we're going to trade AJ Brown, and when we do, the guy we want is Burks? I wonder if that got that far. But if you look at the players taken right after Burks, who was taken at 18, there really aren't a lot of obvious guys who, in hindsight, you say they just should have taken the guy that went next. Here are the guys that went next. Trevor Penning. Ever heard of that guy? He's a Saint.
Not a good one.
Yeah.
There you go.
He hadn't played very much. Kenny Pickett. No great shakes there. And they weren't really looking for a quarterback at the time. They were trying to win at the time.
Yeah.
That was in the window of winning. Trent McDuffie.
Now that would have been a plus for them.
Okay.
Because Trent was a day 1 starter in Kansas City.
Quay Walker, linebacker, Green Bay. Khalil Elam, Buffalo. I'm just looking at obvious stars, certainly from the skill position. The next wide receiver taken was Christian Watson, who you would certainly take before Treylon Burks. He wasn't even taken until the 34th pick. So if you're looking at running backs, if you're looking at wide receivers, that's the next guy. So it's not like there were 5 future Hall of Famers sitting there and they took the wrong guy. If you leave, it's not a list that will jump out at you to say, wow, they missed out on so much.
615-737-1025. We will take your thoughts on all of this at 615-737-1025. Coming up next, an official announcement on something that was reported earlier this week that is Nashville Predators related. We will bring that to you coming up next. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
All right, let's talk F&M Bank. Banking made easy on purpose. 20 locations in our listening area, and I know we've done a great job getting the word out about F&M Bank because they sponsor our Take It to the Bank every Friday at 1:45. We have so much fun with that, and we hope that you've gotten our message about how great they are with their customers through all the fun we've had on those Fridays, and there's more coming this fall for sure, and we're going to keep it going all the way through the summer to link up with them. But F&M Bank, banking made easy on purpose, that's their message to you. They want to take a little burden off of your shoulders and not have you stress about finances. They've got a lot of tools. That's their mindset. So just check them out. They've got 20 locations, and there's a good chance one of them is right in your backyard. Springfield, Mount Juliet, Murfreesboro, a lot of the outer lying towns. And, of course, on West End Avenue, they're right in the heart of Nashville as well. Just go to their website and find the nearest one to you, myfmbank.com. That's myfmbank.com, and find out how they can take some of that burden off your shoulders financially. Banking made easy on purpose. Equal housing lender, member FDIC.
D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063, The Game, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Some news from the Nashville Predators. It was initially reported a few days ago by Alex Daugherty and Rachel Wegner of the Tennessean, but the Nashville Predators have made it official that Tennessee State University has announced that the launch of its historic men's hockey program will shift to the 2026-2027 season. The decision, made in collaboration with the National Hockey League, the Nashville Predators, and College Hockey Inc., underscores a shared commitment to building a sustainable and competitive program from day one. The announcement coincides with a $250,000 grant from the NHL and the Players Association Industry Growth Fund and continued support from the Predators, TSU remains poised to become the first historically Black college or university to sponsor NCAA Division I men's ice hockey. So the plan was for the program to launch this coming season. It has been delayed by at least one season. Again, reported earlier this week by the Tennessean, but made official moments ago by the Predators. And I'm bummed about this, guys, because I was looking forward to TSU giving it a go with men's ice hockey, but just a lot of challenges that the university is going to face to get this off the ground. So I'm hopeful that they can figure it out with another year, but I'm skeptical, to say the least, which upsets me.
Yeah, I was looking for it because it's huge. And having the Predators involved, having the NHL involved is huge because they understand that in order to grow the sport, you got to grow your demographic. And, what better way to grow it than to not only catch them when they're young, but go to the places where historically hockey isn't being played. Where you go to HBCU, hockey is not being played there. So you infuse, some great ideas and hopefully you have the, financial means to back it. And you're trying to do something that ultimately is going to change your sport. I pray that it does work, because I think hockey needs it. I really, truly think hockey needs it. That's why I believe hockey, for so many years have lagged behind the other major sports because it's not a huge crossover appeal. The Nashville Predators try to do a good job. Each individual, I know they try to do what they can, but as a whole, the NHL, they know they got to push it more. The diversity part, bring in more people, more eyes to the sport because it's a really good game, like an awesome game to watch. If you know about it and know what you're watching. So I hope this thing do work out with TSU. I'm bummed that it didn't this year. But whatever's going over on Jefferson Street, hopefully they get it corrected financially, and this team will be fielded, next upcoming hockey season.
And Willie, according to William Douglas of NHL.com, more than 20 players of Black, Indigenous, Asian, or Latin American heritage were selected in this past NHL draft.
Was that the most?
It has to be.
Yeah.
And it would be great to see more representation in the game. We saw firsthand the impact that PK Subban can have with him being here for a few years and the impact that he has had on the sport of hockey, being a successful Black hockey player. And again, I am rooting for TSU to be able to field this team, even if it takes at least another year. But it was disappointing to see this news reported earlier this week by the Tennessean, but made official by the Predators moments ago.
Look, if you've lived in Nashville for a long time, first and foremost, if you love the sports scene and you love the city, you want to see TSU do well, right? They've got such a great history and tradition. It's a special, special place. And I'm talking about just from a sports standpoint, and it's got so much beyond that. But you also know that TSU has had some struggles in recent years, right, with how they fund their athletic program, the year in, year out stuff, right? The football, the basketball, and everything like that. It's not a secret at all. And we've talked to a lot of coaches that have come and gone, and they've talked about the challenges, and every school's got challenges. Yeah. But then let's go to the Predators part. The Predators and the NHL, as you kind of mentioned, Adam, they desperately want to get into other circles, diversity, more people playing, more diverse backgrounds, right? And so the idea and the concept of this is awesome. And we all want to see this happen. But we got to be honest, running a college program,
a lot of money,
even at a school that has tons of resources to back it, is very expensive. And Tennessee State has got a lot of other things going on besides trying to do this, right? They're trying to do this alongside of everything else that's going on, the priorities at that school. And Adam, I know you've got some information on some latest struggles about just the school in general. But before we even get to that, the league giving $250,000 to the program, I would imagine with all of the things that you've got to do to build a roster, to recruit, to travel,
coaches,
the ice time, that doesn't scratch the surface, right? So if the league wants to see this happen, the investment has got to be a lot bigger. And I don't know how much they could do it, but this is kind of goes back to how bad do you want to change the how bad do you want to see this happen? How much are you willing to back this unique?
Before that, the barrier to entry, I guess you could say, for hockey is significantly greater than other sports because of the cost to play the game, the cost of the equipment, and finding ice time. I mean, there's a giant wasp in our studio.
Good Lord.
This is new. We've never had this before.
No.
And this isn't a real big studio, so
Let's keep the door closed.
No. Let's keep the door open.
David
I want
wants
this
to
thing
say-
out.
David's like, keep that thing in there, man. I'm on the other side of the glass.
I saw Derek like convulsing. I'm like, what's going on over there, dude?
Yeah.
Now I know.
Now
There's
I
a
know why he was doing
giant
that.
bug. Now Derek is
Derek's going
off
away.
to try to get it. Oh gosh.
Oh, no.
This is live radio. Derek's under attack.
Okay.
How did he get in here?
Who knows? Did you get it?
No. Damn wasp, man.
Live radio.
Live radio is great, man. I don't want that wasp. That wasp flew up underneath me, man. You want to get stung by a wasp?
No,
Exactly.
but I'm not kicking the window while
I'm
we're
not
on the
kicking
air.
the window. I'm just trying to kill it.
I've done a lot of radio shows. I've never seen that before.
Okay. Can you give it a couple minutes?
No, I don't want to get stung.
Okay, well, you've
Do your
asked for
thing.
it now. You've
Your
asked for it now. All right, back to more serious matters. The barrier to entry for hockey is so much more significant
Right.
than other sports. And I was just reading, for example, so Gavin McKenna, who is expected to be the #1 pick in the 2026 NHL draft, recently committed to Penn State. I believe, if I recall correctly, Penn State is paying him $700,000 in NIL
Yeah.
to come to Penn State. And Penn State,
Presumably for maybe 1 year, maybe 2, right?
and Penn State's a major benefactor is the Pagula family, who owns the Buffalo Bills and the Buffalo Sabres. So they have the resources to pay this projected #1
Sure.
overall pick nearly $1 million.
Right.
And a lot of schools don't have those resources. TSU certainly does not have those
No,
resources.
they would have to have a team with virtually no NIL, right? But you still have to get, I would think, scholarship money.
Yes.
And that's
Some
costly
scholarship
to start
money.
with. So that alone, but when you're talking about, the equipment and the uniforms, I'll give you an example. When I played college baseball at Vanderbilt, Tennessee State had a baseball program, but the cost of the baseball program, the rising cost of playing baseball growing up, and the fact that baseball was shrinking in interest in the inner cities, eventually TSU dropped the baseball program, and that was a big thing. That was a sad thing, and it's never come back. And so, sustaining a hockey program, starting it, funding it, sustaining it, getting crowds to try to get some return on investment. It's really, really a tough needle to thread for it to be a success, even though everybody wants this to happen. Everybody wants this to happen. But the financial backing right now would have to be so much more.
It would have to be a commitment, a true commitment.
And the university is struggling right now. Right?
Yes. 615-737-1025. One texter says, LOL, best 5 minutes of radio ever.
Oh my gosh.
Should we just have Derek kill bugs for the next hour?
So we have secured the bug.
Yes, the bug is
The
out,
wasp is secure.
but there's a story to it too that I think y'all should know.
What's that? Did that bug owe you money?
No, not really.
Okay.
How did
But I
you-
would tell it on the other
Did you
side.
owe the bug money?
I would tell it to you on the other side.
Okay.
On the other
Okay.
side, because
Okay.
it's a good story.
All right. 615-737-1025. Quite the teaser. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Finken, 1025, 1063 The Game. D. Mace, Finnegan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. In case you missed it, Derek Mason attempted to murder a wasp while we were on the air.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
Derek, you thought you and the wasp were done.
Yes. I thought I had accomplished
However,
what I wanted to accomplish. But just like Jason Voorhees, that damn wasp would not die.
It was a big
He
one,
would
too.
not be unalived. Okay. So what I do is I Willie, you saw me.
I saw it. It's a good
I
technique.
grab it, bam.
And you had a
Technique.
towel.
Had a towel. Didn't
Yeah.
do it with my bare hands, people.
Yeah.
Had a towel, nice thick one. So I grab it, boom. I didn't want to kill it and squish it. Gingerly walked it to the bathroom, dumped the rag into the toilet, saw the wasp drop down into the toilet. I go to flush the toilet. That wasp understood what was happening, and he came after me. And I started running around like a little kid. I tried to close the bathroom door. He was too swift.
it's a
Too
mutant
swift.
wasp.
Yeah. I think they had his bio. He ran a 4.3.
Mm.
So that's why he flew a 4.3. So that's how he got a bathroom.
Before three.
As I'm trying to, dart into the studio, he finds his way on the door. I can't come in the studio now because I'm afraid that if I open up the door, what's going to happen? He's going to slip in. We're going to be going through this over again. So I'm sitting there. He's looking at me. I'm looking at him. He darts at me. I move out the way, take the rag, spot. He falls to the ground. And I swear, no lie, Willie, y'all, listeners, he looked at me, and just flew right at me. I bust through the door, closed it. I heard something hit the door. It could have been the wasp.
So you're saying that wasp,
He may be
Might
still
still
out there.
alive.
Yeah, he may still be out there.
it's on the grounds.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
I feel for those who are out there. He's coming.
So that wasp was like looking at you, he's going,
Yeah.
You thought you were going to flush me down the toilet?
Do you know who I am?
So that's what
Acknowledge
happened.
me.
So that is what happened.
Derek Mason breaking stereotypes because, as we know, what happens usually at the beginning of horror movies.
Yes, the black guys die. That's just what happens. It happens. I'm not going to lie, people. Don't be so sensitive. That is what happens. Everybody knows it. 2 people die first. Everybody knows who those 2 people are.
The hot girl and the black guy.
Exactly.
Okay.
Not in that order. Could be the black guy, then the hot girl. Could be the hot girl. Then it could be both of them at the same time. Who knows?
Yes.
But that's who's going to be gone first.
Now, how many eyes does a wasp have?
Well, he had enough to see me. No, he had 2.
Chad
I
said,
think they have 2, right?
Yeah, they have 2.
Spiders have the lot of eyes, right?
Chad says,
Yeah.
so it's a toilet wasp? That's worse than a regular wasp.
It's a waterbender of wasp.
Exactly.
One texter says, was Ant-Man with the wasp? I don't know.
Good
This
question.
isn't the sequel.
John
Nah.
says, wasps remember faces, FYI.
Ooh.
So you better watch
Yeah.
your back, Derek Mason.
Yeah. I'm walking out of here very slowly.
One texter
The thing
says,
is, we've
they
gotta
smell
go through-
fear.
Yeah.
I think we're giving too much credit to the wasp.
Never underestimate
There's
a
only
wasp.
one way out of this place, too.
Mm-hmm.
From this studio, we got to go through these 2 doors. He could be waiting right there.
Derek will be the first
Derek,
one
I
to leave.
was going to say, Derek, lead the way.
Derek, Derek, we volunteer you to go out first.
He's hiding behind the trash can.
Now we have some people defending the wasp.
Oh my Lord.
Jeff
Okay.
says, so you didn't want to crush the wasp, but you flushing it down the toilet was okay.
Haven't you seen the movies? What happens? The bug get flushed. He doesn't die.
Yeah.
He just goes into another,
Yeah.
another
You're
house
giving him
or
a
something.
chance. You're giving him a
Exactly.
chance.
I'm
If you
giving him a
can survive
chance.
the flush, you deserve to live.
Yes,
You'll be out of our
absolutely.
area, though.
I mean, there was a time, maybe it was around the time that Snakes on a Plane was in theaters, where I was always a bit fearful using the restroom going a certain number because I didn't want a snake to come through the pipe.
I think a lot of people had that fear, especially when you're using public restrooms. Yeah.
Chad says that wasp had that dog in him. Hey,
He's fighting,
Hey.
fighting to survive. How in the world did he get in the studio? That's what I still.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like,
It's
goodness.
not a big place.
He was trying to figure that out too.
There's no windows. How did
No.
he get in?
Yeah, no open.
I mean, we have a
window.
window that doesn't open. It's like
Yeah.
plexiglass, right? How did he get in there?
I don't know. There you go.
we'll
found a
never
way.
know.
It's a
We'll never
mystery.
know.
It's a
Yes.
mystery.
But Derek has survived
Yes.
for now. Check back later in the program if Derek goes eerily silent. the Wasp got.
Or comes in with his head swollen up twice the size.
Looking like Hitch.
Sting.
Looking like Will Smith on Hitch.
Oh, man. Okay. Back to sports.
Uh-huh.
I stumbled across this list written last summer, ranking the top 10 seasons by a wide receiver with a rookie quarterback under center. These wideouts thrived with their new passers. Now, again, this was written last summer, so it does not include Jaden Daniels or Bo Nix or Caleb Williams or Drake May and their top receivers. But guess who appears at number 8 on this list? Derek Mason with Joe Flacco in 2008, 1,005 receiving yards. So it's ranked by receiving yards. So quickly, here's the top 10 as of last summer. From 10 to 1, Vincent Jackson with Mike Glennon in 2013 with the Buccaneers.
Mike Glennon.
Mike Glennon.
Yes.
Mike Glennon was defeated by the Vanderbilt Commodores in the Music City Bowl when he was at NC State, by the way. Just sidebar.
AJ Green with Andy Dalton with the Bengals in 2011. Derek Mason with Joe Flacco with the Ravens in 2008, 1,005 yards. Isaac Bruce with Tony Banks with the 1996 Rams. Brian Hartline with Ryan Tannehill for the 2012 Miami Dolphins. The top 5, Mike Evans with Jameis Winston in 2015. Nico Collins with CJ Stroud in 2023.
Okay.
Reggie Wayne with Andrew Luck in 2012. Roddy White with Matt Ryan in 2008. And number 1 with 1,394 receiving yards, Steve Smith with Cam Newton in 2011. Now, updating this list, Derek Mason, you're still on the list. You're number 10.
Yes.
Because last season, Terry McLaurin had 1,096 receiving yards with Jaden Daniels, and Cortland Sutton had 1,081 receiving yards for the Broncos with Bo Nix. By the way, DJ Moore with Caleb Williams, 966 yards. And a wide receiver was not Drake May's number 1 target in New England. Hunter Henry had 674 receiving yards. The top wide receiver, Demario Douglas, with 621 receiving yards to lead all Patriots wide receivers. So the reason I bring this up is, how should we tailor expectations for Calvin Ridley with Cam Ward throwing him the ball based on those numbers? So there have been plenty of 1,000-yard receiving seasons from a wideout with a rookie quarterback. Number 1, Steve Smith with Cam Newton in 2011, 79 receptions, 1,394 yards, and 7 touchdowns. So should we set the baseline at 1,000 yards for Calvin Ridley? How should we make these expectations for Ridley based on history of veteran wideouts with rookie quarterbacks?
I think you got to first look at, the personnel around, what type of team they are philosophically, offensively. Brian Callahan wants to throw the football a little bit more than what they have. But with the rookie quarterback, you do it in phases. You kind of bring them along slowly. But if you look at it, he's your number 1 option. And when he's your number 1 option, everything is going to run from a passing standpoint. Everything should run through that number 1 option. You want your quarterback to get familiar with your number 1 guy as soon as possible. And a lot of it is repetition, being in the film room together, watching film together, you knowing him as a player, him knowing you, and even further than that. And then, you hope that what you've built through practice and everything else, once you get on the field, it translates. So I think a lot of it has to do, again, I think Ridley should be 1,100 guy at least, 1,100 yards at least, 6 touchdowns at least. He's the number 1 guy. Those should be your numbers, even with the rookie quarterback. But a lot of it's going to depend on, because he can be. There's being productive, and there's running up a bunch of numbers. Running up a bunch of numbers means we're down by 20 points, 17 points. You got to throw the football, so you're going to accumulate numbers. You're going to get the stats, but the stats aren't helping you win games. We did it the other way in Baltimore. We didn't throw the ball a lot, but we were we tried to be as efficient as possible with the football and throwing it, because we knew that Joe couldn't drop back. Now, eventually he became that guy, but his rookie year, he couldn't drop back and throw the ball 35 times or even 30 times a game and us expect to win ball games.
What's interesting is the year before Flacco arrived, you had 103 catches for 1,087 yards. In Flacco's rookie season, you caught 23 fewer passes, but you only had 50 fewer receiving yards. You went from 1,087 to 1,037.
It was about efficiency.
Yes, your yard per reception went up from 10.6 to 13.
Yeah, it was about being efficient with the younger quarterback. Now, that previous year, I think we went through about 2 or 3 quarterbacks that previous year.
Would that have been Kyle Bowler?
Kyle Bowler, Steve was hurt. I think we even went with Wright. His last name was Wright. Anthony Wright. He may have been on a team as well, and he may have played a little bit quarterback as well. But it's about with a rookie quarterback, it's not necessarily about throwing the ball a lot. It's just about being efficient. And if you are efficient in what you're doing, the numbers will come, because a lot of it, we did a lot of play action. We had 2 very good running backs. Our offensive line was good. We did a lot of it out of play action because that was Joe's strength, pushing the ball down the field. They're going to have to find out what Cam Ward's strength is and how it works well with Calvin Ridley. Again, he should be the guy that is getting the bulk of the work, unless he proves otherwise, unless other guys start to come on. But to start off, they need to build that rapport as quickly as possible with your number one guy and your franchise quarterback. Because if you don't, I think Cam is going to have a hard time, at least at the beginning, at pushing the ball down the field.
So here are, Willie, Terry McLaurin's numbers from last season with Jaden Daniels as his quarterback. 82 receptions, 1,096 yards, so an average of 13.4 with 13 touchdowns. Now, we're not expecting 13 touchdowns from Calvin Ridley.
I would love it.
But 80-ish receptions, roughly 1,100 yards, Derek, and then we'll get Willie's thoughts. You think that should be the baseline expectation?
It's doable. Yeah, I think it's doable.
80-ish receptions, roughly 1,100 yards.
The 80 might, okay, in today's football, yes. How many did he have last year? 70?
Ridley?
Yeah.
Let's take a look.
I think he had 70-something receptions. He may have had 80. But
Ridley had 64 receptions
64.
on 120 targets, 1,017 yards, and 4 touchdowns.
So he needs to be, I think, 75, 80 catches, over 1,100 yards. I think based on the pay, based on him being the number one guy in the offense that wants to pass the football, he should be an 80 catch guy, 1,100 yards, and I give him 6 or 7. He had 6 touchdowns last year, didn't he?
He had 4.
4.
He had 2. He may have had 2 like rushing touchdowns. He had 3 rush. He had 1 rushing touchdown and 4 receiving touchdowns.
Okay, so he had a total of 5. Listen, he should be a 6 to 7 touchdown guy. He should be. He has the ability to, at minimum, do that.
A lot of the people on this list, and Derek would be one of them, played on a team that was a good team. Like, you guys obviously were a good team. You guys went and beat the Titans, the number 1 seed in the playoffs that year, and played the Steelers nip and tuck. That was a tough game. Like, that game could have gone either way. This Titans team is not going to be like that. I don't think Terry McLaurin and the Washington. Now, I don't think we had high expectations for that team going in, but as we know, that team turned out to be a good team.
No, I can't remember the records of all of these teams.
Yeah.
I don't recall, for example, the 2015 Buccaneers with Jameis Winston and Mike Evans.
No, they were terrible.
Yeah, okay. So it's possible with a terrible team. By the way, Mike Evans.
No, maybe not terrible, but not good. Like, not a playoff team.
Mike Evans had 74 receptions for 1,206 yards and 3 touchdowns with Jameis Winston in his rookie season.
So I wonder about that part of it, because part of where you can get yards is, I think this was the case with Winston and Evans, is you're behind and you get you might get some padded stats in some fourth quarters. And I think there were probably some games last year that Ridley got some yards that way. Ridley had some games where he was non-existent for a while. He had some very good games. And then he had some games where he probably got a few catches late. Every receiver might get a few like that.
Namely the game against the Lions, which, by the way, was 52-14. He had 10 receptions for 143 yards.
And in fairness, in the first half, when they started
Yeah.
going well, they were playing awful in other areas, but he played really well in that game. I don't want to take anything away from what he did.
He had
A lot of
too
that
many,
was in the first half.
Yeah, he had too many games where, and you just said it, where he disappeared. He had too many games where, and I'm not saying it was his fault. I don't know whose fault it was, but when you are the number one guy, you can't just disappear. Especially, I guess it would be his fault because I forget what game that was. I think he dropped like 2 or 3 balls, and
well, there was the infamous game against the Colts early in the season where he had 0 receptions on 8 targets.
Exactly.
Talked about it after the game.
Yeah. So he can't. That can't be his stat line moving forward with the young quarterback or rookie quarterback. That cannot be his stat line. He has to be helping that rookie quarterback. Because if he's not, then somebody else needs to pick up the slack. But if you're the number one guy, you can't just, disappear like you did, last year at points in the season. And again, I'm not blaming it all on him, but when you're that guy, you have to elevate your quarterback in some situations. And he did with Will Levis at times.
In the first 6 games of the season, Ridley had 12 receptions for 183 yards. Then in the game against the Lions, he had 10 receptions for 143 yards. So he basically had his first 6 weeks of the season in one game against the Lions.
I think after 6 weeks, I think there were a lot of people that probably would not have bet on him getting to 1,000 yards. So he did reasonably well to recover and have numbers at the end of the season that were at least respectable.
Mm-hmm.
But that was his only 100-yard receiving game of the season.
But that's the Titans. That is, I blame that whole experiment on the Titans. I just do. They should have known beforehand when they brought Ridley in that this thing with D-Hop, I said it's not going to work.
You think the D-Hop thing will help Ridley a lot?
I think it
out
hurt.
Of the gate.
I think it hurt him because they were still trying to run the offense somewhat through D-Hop, and running the offense through D-Hop, as I said at the beginning of last year, it's not going to get your offense anywhere. It's not. Can he catch the ball? Yes. Is he going to be a Hall of Famer? I believe yes. But in today's game, he can't be that guy for you, because if he's that guy, your offense is going to be a slow offense. And it wasn't until he departed, they traded him away, Calvin Ridley started to, show himself more in games. So I blame that on the Titans because that was a failed experiment.
And you're not going to have that issue this season because Tyler Lockett and Van Jefferson and the rookie wide receivers are not going to threaten Calvin Ridley for that alpha dog status right out of the gate.
But it's hard for what people don't understand is that it's hard for an individual to come in than to already be there. Like this year, it'd be better for Calvin Ridley now because he's here now. He knows the offense. He's picking up on tendencies and stuff. So this year should be now it's Jefferson and Tyler Lockett. Those are going to be the guys that may not benefit this year. Maybe next year they benefit, but I'm not sure if they're going to benefit a lot this year because why? They're still learning the offense.
615-737-1025. Your expectations. An interesting list of the top veteran wide receivers and their output playing with rookie quarterbacks. So your baseline expectations for Calvin Ridley in his first season with Cam Ward. 615-737-1025. But coming up next, there's some collusion in the air. I can smell it. And I know Willie Donick has a lot of thoughts on this. So we'll get to that next. 615-737-1025. Tune into ESPN 94.9 The Fan today as the Nashville Sounds take on the Durham Bulls. Pre-game begins at 5:20. First pitch is at 5:35. Coverage is also available on the Game Nashville app and at theGameNashville.com. Sounds Baseball on ESPN 94.9 The Fan is presented by Twin Peaks and Family Leisure. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. So you may recall a couple of weeks ago, a story came out courtesy of Pablo Torre and Mike Florio about potential collusion among NFL owners in the wake of Deshaun Watson's fully guaranteed contract with the Cleveland Browns. And there has been some additional reporting from ESPN. Don Van Natta Jr. and Kalen Kaler co-bylined this story. Quote, the NFL and senior leaders of the NFL Players Association struck an unusual confidentiality agreement that hid the details of an arbitration decision from players, including a finding that league executives had urged team owners to reduce guaranteed player compensation, multiple sources told ESPN. On January 14th, arbitrator Christopher Droney ruled there wasn't sufficient evidence of collusion by owners in contract negotiations with quarterbacks after the record fully guaranteed contract by quarterback Deshaun Watson in 2022. Any such collusion to keep salaries down would violate the CBA between the NFL and the union. But Droney concluded that the NFLPA showed, quote, by a clear preponderance of the evidence that Commissioner Roger Goodell and the league's general counsel, Jeff Pash, had urged owners to restrict guaranteed money in player contracts. So according to ESPN, the NFL and senior leaders of the NFLPA struck an unusual agreement that hid the details of this decision from players. Willie, I know you're a little bit fired up about this.
Well, I'm baffled that this isn't a bigger story. I know it is a little hard to follow on the surface, but the basics of it are this. And I find this interesting because I have studied baseball history, and I know how the owners, they got defeated. They were brought down by a strong players association through A, being unified, B, having good leadership, and attacking and also making public the stripes of the players, the rights of the players, and trying to advance when there was no free agency. Like, I'm going back, I'm not saying in recent times, because the pendulum has swung a lot towards baseball. You don't hear baseball players crying foul a whole lot right now. They're taken care of pretty well. There was a day where that was not the case. But in the 1980s, the league colluded and told the owners, the commissioner at the time, Peter Ueberroth, basically told the owners, hey, if you guys are paying way too much for free agents, you're paying stupid money, stop doing it. And they came up with a system, more or less, that would not go after even the top free agents for a 2 or 3 year period. Tim Raines, Andre Dawson, Jack Morris, like some of the best players of that decade. It was baffling at the time. People didn't want to believe it. Years later, after they stayed after it, baseball had to pay the players hundreds of millions of dollars. All of the free agents, whether they were good or not, got compensated. This, to me, is very similar. After the Deshaun Watson contract, where he got a guaranteed contract, and the rest of the owners were like, what did you just do, Cleveland Browns? What just happened? It was an unprecedented contract. What happened? After that, Roger Goodell goes to the owners and says, hey, not a good idea. Don't do that again. Let's not open up Pandora's box and set a precedent here. And that's exactly what they did. They banded together. They colluded, which is against the CBA. And the players' union goes and files a grievance. At the time, the leader of the Players Association, DeMaurice Smith, was the one carrying the torch.
Mm-hmm.
This decision comes down in January. It took 3 years to get the findings of this. And as you just mentioned, the arbiter basically said, look, there's not enough evidence to nail the guys for collusion. But let me just tell you a few things here. It really does look like there was a motion here to say no guaranteed contracts for Lamar Jackson and other quarterbacks that would have benefited from the precedent set from Deshaun Watson, right? That I mean, an idiot could interpret that. But here's the thing that really gets me. The current leader, his name is Powell.
Lloyd Howell Jr.
Lloyd Howell Jr.
Yes.
He decides, hey, let's sign a confidentiality agreement so that I don't even tell the players what was said by the arbiter. Now, why in the world would you do that? You represent the players. So he signs an agreement not to tell the players what the arbiter said, which was very incriminating for the owners, where you have in emails and texts a conversation between the lead attorney for the owners and the commissioner saying, hey, this is not a good idea, this guaranteed money stuff, man. Let's tell everybody, don't do this. That's collusion. You think as a player, Derek, you might have wanted to know that?
Oh, I would have wanted to know that.
Of course you would have. This
would've.
is your representative. This is your guy. But he goes to the players and says, that was the old guy. That was DeMaurice Smith. You know, you guys wasted a lot of time and energy and money doing something you don't need to know. But imagine you have a case where Adam goes and, you know, he's arguing about, I don't know, let's just pick it's a dispute, the People's Court or something. And you send an attorney in there to hear your case, but you can't go in there. But the attorney comes out and Adam says, hey, Mr. Smith, my attorney, how did it go? Well, we lost. Oh, what did the judge say? I can't tell you. Imagine that.
You'd be peeved. Baffled.
So what is going on with the union here? Who is this leader?
I am not going to blame the players, like the other player reps, because obviously they didn't get the information. To me, the ball was started. They started with DeMaurice in 2022 because there was something there. So they started the case. And then all of a sudden, 3 years later, you have someone else comes in and say, never mind. Let's talk behind closed doors and let's get this agreement together. And whatever was said, it can't be discussed with any of the other 32, or it's a little bit more than that, player reps. But we can discuss it with maybe just the lawyers, but we can't discuss it, or we won't discuss it with the players. And then you go into the room with the players. And as you said, well, we lost. Well, what's going on? Well, we signed this agreement. We can't talk about it. My next thing would have been, well, you're fired. We need to fire you, because if you can't tell us about a case that involves us, something's wrong here. And this is why, and again, I don't blame the players, but this is why when we talk about unions, and I try to take up for the union, this is why they believe in major sports that the NFL has the weakest union. This why, because you're colluding. You're an op. That the young kids call them ops. You're an op, and it's in plain day. You should be gone. They should vote your ass off today. If we were on an island, you would be off.
Yeah.
There's no way that you are my representative. You speak for us, but then you go and you make a backroom deal that you can't tell us about.
It looks like they're in the owner's hip pocket.
They are.
That's what it looks like.
He is.
Yeah.
I'm not saying the players are, but he is.
Yes.
Obviously.
According to ESPN, Lloyd Howell Jr. is working as a paid part-time consultant for the Carlyle Group, one of a select group of league-approved private equity firms now seeking minority ownership in NFL franchises.
So that's a conflict of interest. He's making money. He made over $3 million for a cause that's in cahoots with NFL owners.
Why did they even
ESPN reported,
how could that possibly be?
That Howell briefed the players on the decision, but did not detail the findings or provide copies. The confidentiality agreement kept the details of Droney's finding from the players until the Pablo Torre Finds Out podcast published the full arbitrators report on June 24th.
So that piece of information that Goodell and Pash, the correspondence back and forth that's been documented. The players in the league who are represented, but they found out from Pablo Torre that happened, and not from their leadership.
When DeMaurice was leading the players union, especially now I didn't like everything. I didn't agree with everything. I wanted more. Like, there were a group of us that wanted more. But they settled, and it is what it is. But he made sure, and that group made sure, that we had everything that we needed to have in order to make a educational decision, intelligent decision based upon, the new collective bargaining. D. Maurice didn't come in and say, "Hey, listen, this is what we decided. We're going to do this, but we're not going to give y'all any information." No, he gave us information. Sometimes it was too much information. I don't understand why you would go into a room on a telephone or face to face and make a backhanded deal like that, and you're representing, how many players are there? 1,700 players. Why would you make a deal like that? And why isn't someone with a bullhorn screaming like, this isn't right? I don't understand it. This is why, and again, it's not the players' fault. It's those that are tasked to not only be player reps, but to be on that committee. Like, there's only so many guys on that committee. This is why they believe that the NFL has the weakest union, because of stuff like this. Baseball didn't do it.
Right. Baseball owners,
They tried. They did it, but then they got penalized for it.
Right. When they had the breakthrough leader of the Players Association was Marvin Miller, and he was a royal pain in the to the owners, to the point where once they started getting traction, the owners started to fear Marvin Miller, and then his successor, Donald Fear. That's what you need as a players, a bulldog, where the owners are sitting there going, "Man, we'd like to sweep this under the rug, but we know that they're not going to let that happen." They've never had that for the NFL union. Going back to Gene Upshaw and then DeMaurice Smith, it's always the owners have never really feared the Players Association.
What they did when Gene Upshaw was player, when he was head of player reps, they didn't like Gene Upshaw because he was a former player and he was trying to push for players to get paid more than everything else. He was at the forefront and all that, and they didn't like him. That was probably the last person he was
certainly better than the last two guys, but I don't understand how. Like, think about what the owners decided to do, and the commissioner's part of this too. You get them to sign a confidentiality agreement. First of all, how did they think they were going to keep this secret? This is huge, damaging information. But they're like, "Oh, nobody will find out. We have a confidentiality." So thank goodness for a journalist like Pablo Torres.
But again, what
is this out?
What is anybody going to do about it? Because it's not like we just found this out today. They knew about it. The story came out 2 weeks ago.
Yes,
and they still.
And now they're going to appeal the ruling. Like, what's going on in the last 6 months when they knew all this? Because you know why? The players didn't know all this stuff, and now the players, I'm sure, rightfully so, are going back and going, "Wait a minute, look at this,"
because it hurts them. It hurts them.
Yes.
615-737-1025. I smell collusion. 615-737-1025. It's a pungent aroma. Like, what was that perfume in Anchorman? Sex Panther?
The Sex Panther. 60% of the time.
It works every time.
Exactly. Collusion and Sex Panther have roughly the same aroma.
But can I make one more point of this, though?
Sure.
What is your best ally when you've got somebody dead to right for that? It's the media. They could have driven this as a players association going, "Look what they did." And you might get some public support. Right now, on a show like ours, there's people confused. They don't know anything about this because they successfully kept this under wraps for a long time. But you've got the partners kind of in the bag, the media partners. ESPN's not going to be stopping everything they're doing to say, "Look at this. The players got cheated." Like, think about landmark cases in the past that opened the door for free agency and other things that, until that happened, it was very, very different. This could have been a precedent-setting contract for Watson, to where the best quarterbacks in the league, at least the quarterbacks, and then maybe other players would follow suit, would start to get either more guaranteed money or fully guaranteed contracts. But they put a stop to it because why? They colluded. And they've been able to keep it a secret.
615-737-1025. We will take your thoughts on that. I also want you to ponder this question as we go to break. How much would you pay to stay at Michael Jordan's house? Because I have an answer for you. Coming up next, 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063 The Game. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Stillman and Company featuring Jake Lyman, Connor Newton, and Parker Kelly. Coming up next, by the way, we do have a quote-unquote homework assignment for you, as Willie discussed the other day. Tomorrow, we are going to take a look back at a game that Willie chose, 1986, Week 3 of the NFL season between the Miami Dolphins and New York Jets. You can find that game on YouTube. We've also tweeted it out at our @1025 The Game account. So if you want to play along with us tomorrow, you can watch the game, as much of it as you'd like, and we are going to analyze it and how much the game has changed on a variety of factors over the past 40 years, not just on the field, but the broadcast, the commercials, all of those things. So if you want to do this with us, we're going to do it in the 1 o'clock hour tomorrow. The link is been tweeted out at 1025 The Game. So that'll be in the 1 o'clock hour tomorrow.
And watch as much or as little of it as you like. But I think you would enjoy the participation, even if you just watched a 10-minute segment. But you can skip around. It is a great ending to a great end, a great game. I watched it as a kid. But we're going to make observations. What jumps out at you when you watch an old game 40 years ago from an X's and O's standpoint, equipment, pop culture, the broadcast. So we're going to have some fun tomorrow.
So I want to end the show on this.
Mhm.
How much would you pay to spend a week at Michael Jordan's former mansion in the suburbs of Chicago?
Same amount I would spend in a hotel, I guess. I get the whole house.
You get the whole house.
I'm surprised you even said that. I
Yeah,
thought you were going to
probably
go Al
wouldn't
Pacino in The Godfather. Here's my offer.
Yeah, it's
Nothing.
nothing. No, I mean, if I get to stay in his house, what would be the going rate for a nice hotel there in Chicago?
A lot.
Probably about $1,000 a night. So yeah, I would.
So
But wouldn't you
pay
rather
about
be in the
800.
middle of Chicago and
Yeah,
where you can walk around to all the good stuff?
yeah, you're right about
That'd
that.
be- So where is this? You're not near anything, right? You're going to
The-
stumble out to a nice restaurant.
his former Illinois mansion, which is located in Highland Park, Illinois, is now available on Airbnb.
Mm.
It was purchased by real estate investor John Cooper, not the Tampa Bay Lightning coach.
Mhm.
He bought the house for $9.5 million, and now it is available on Airbnb. The mansion sits on 7.39 acres, 7 bedrooms, 17 and a half bathrooms, a movie theater, gym, cigar lounge, pool tables, and saltwater aquariums. The property also features a swimming pool, a fishing pond stocked with bass and bluegill, a putting green, and of course, a basketball court. Anyone renting the mansion must sign a non-disclosure agreement and liability waiver and pay a $25,000 security deposit and cannot host parties or events on the property. A maximum of 12 guests can stay in the house, no pets. A minimum 7-night reservation is required, making the price of a stay in Jordan's old house $120,920 per week.
Nah, I pass.
Yeah.
I pass on that one.
It's not something I would splurge on. We had the discussion
Nah.
yesterday, what you might be enticed to actually splurge on.
Mhm.
This would not be on my radar.
Nah.
It would not. I'd rather splurge for the nice hotel in the middle of
exactly.
downtown,
Absolutely walkable.
where I can hop on the subway, or the L, as they call it in Chicago, and go to Wrigley or go to a nice restaurant.
But
That's-
if you split it with your friends, if you find 11 friends,
Still spending $20,000
$10,076.
or $10,000. That's still
that's
too
still a
much.
splurge.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna think. No, some hotels you end up paying if you go on a trip. You end up paying probably a little bit close to that. But that's because you got the ocean and you got other things you can do, and you're going as a family. Yada yada yada. I just can't paying that much. I need to be near things that I can just walk out
Exactly.
and just walk down the street to, and I don't have to get in my car and travel because I'm sure that Highlands. I'm sure it's at least
Highland Park, Illinois.
25 minutes from downtown.
Yeah. And you got to get a car. Where
Yeah.
are you going to park when you go downtown? Unless you're sitting there going, we're just going to stay in Michael Jordan's place.
I think that's
and
what you
hang
would
the whole
do.
time.
You
But
would stay at the mansion for
Wouldn't
the
you
whole
get
week.
bored?
Exactly.
I don't
if you
know. He's
can't-
got a basketball court and
Okay.
a fishing pond
Nobody's
and a
gonna play
swimming pool.
A fishing pond?
Yes, I
We got a
said that.
pool- we got a
Hotel
pool
has a
pond.
basketball
So like
court.
Caddyshack, we got a pool and a pond.
It's got a pool and a pond and a cigar lounge. You don't have to leave. But this actually reminds me of another story I saw yesterday. This is just a funny lead from NBC News. A New York City co-op board rejected influencer Livy Dunn's bid to buy Babe Ruth's one-time apartment, turning aside her nearly $1.6 million offer of cash. So Livy Dunn, who is the LSU gymnast,
Right.
who is dating
Influencer.
Paul Skeens,
Mhm.
they were going to pay $1.6 million in cash to buy Babe Ruth's one-time apartment, but the co-op board of the building rejected her.
Put the kibosh on that one. We don't want. We like it quiet around here.
She
We
said,
don't want
and
that
I quote,
influencer stuff around here.
she said, and I quote, I got an interior designer because I didn't want to bring my college furniture to Babe Ruth's apartment. That would be like criminal, quote, end quote.
I guess they started too much fuss once they got up in there. See, started going on Instagram and telling, no. If you're gonna do it quietly. Do it quietly.
She accepted the ruling with good spirit. I watched this TikTok.
Mhm.
Probably the first time I've watched a Livy Dunn TikTok, which may make me an outlier among men my age. But she seemed to be a good sport about it.
She never said why the co-op denied her. Because there have been other people, like famous people that have been denied as well.
She said it could have been, for all I know, they could have been Alabama fans when I went to LSU. Like, I have no clue. Maybe they didn't want a public figure living there. Something tells me that none of the people living in this New York City co-op are Alabama fans. I'm just saying.
What's the probability? Low.
No, very, very low. Yes. I think it had more so to do with, sort of the attention she would bring to the building.
Probably.
Yeah. So they didn't want it. Maybe Paul Skeens should have went and tried to get it. They probably would have said no to him too.
Maybe. But you know what? Good on her for trying.
Hey,
I
but
guess.
those are first world problems right there.
Yes.
Those
This
right
is
there
exactly
are
right.
first world problems. And if you felt bad for her, shame on you. If you felt, I'm not talking about you, Adam, but if anybody felt bad for her, shame on y'all. Those are first world problems.
I'm sure Jake Lyman and Connor Newt and Parker Kelly are big Livy Dunn fans. They are right in her demographic.
Say that again?
Contemporaries.
Yeah.
I said that I think Jake Lyman, Connor Newt, and Parker Kelly are absolutely Livy Dunn fans because they are right in her demographic. Teenage boys.
Are y'all guys Livy Dunn fans?
They're all 17 and a half.
Connor, no, let's be real with Connor. Connor's 12.
Okay.
He hasn't graduated high school yet or middle school yet.
Yeah, so that's the teen crew. We call them the teen crew.
Mm-hmm.
What were they called? The Mickey Mouse Club?
The Mickey
They're gonna
Mouse
be
Club.
the teen group. The teen crew.
Except the Mickey Mouse Club launched the careers of Justin Timberlake and
Britney
Britney
Spears.
Spears
Yeah,
and
among others.
Was Jamie Spears a part of that? She must have been a little bit younger. She probably wasn't a part of the Mickey Mouse.
Y'all
Oh,
don't
yeah.
follow Rick Merrick because he just said that all three of these guys were the future of Nashville sports radio.
oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Well, cool. I mean, I
Ryan
hope
Rick
they
Merritt
are.
said that. If Rick Merritt said it, then that means it's true.
Hey, I hope
Ryan
they are.
Gosling was a part of the Mickey Mouse
Was he?
Club. Yeah, Christina Aguilera.
Yeah,
That's
I
right.
remember Christina Aguilera.
So I think you're pushing it with the Mickey Mouse Club thing.
Yeah.
No offense to Jake and Connor. And
If you're going to insult me, at least get it right. It's the Mouseketeers.
oh, I'm sorry.
Our fault.
Connor, you better be nice to me. I'm taking you to Friday Night SmackDown tomorrow.
Ooh,
So
hey,
don't make me cancel that ticket I
if you want
transferred
to
you,
get
my
picked
friend.
up, then chill out.
That's all I'm saying.
Buy me a beer. It'll be all right.
Are you old enough for a beer?
Yes.
Okay. just
We need to
checking.
card. We need to card you, buddy.
He was doing the hand quotes while he said that. Yeah.
Yes. We know what that means.
He is in college still, so I mean,
We know what that means.
So nobody out there would take a shot with 11 of your buddies to spend a week at Michael Jordan's mansion in
Right.
suburban
No,
Chicago.
no.
Now, if you had some disposable income, then yeah, I mean, it would be one of those.
You could tell me Michael would be there hanging out with you, and I still wouldn't really bite. I wouldn't bite.
Now, I
Not-
think
not
I may want, yeah. If I got 10
If
other
Michael
friends
made
that
an
would pay
appearance,
that,
if Michael made an appearance as part of the fee,
I think I would do
I wouldn't
it.
do it.
I would do it. I think I would. I would. If I had
I
10
would
other
splurge
buddies
on other things.
that said they're going to pay, their portion, and Michael's going to be there to have some drinks with us, chill, tell us stories, I'm taking it.
Okay.
I'm taking it.
well, that'll do it for us today. We'll see if Derek survives leaving the station. That wasp is lurking somewhere.
He's hiding.
We'll see if Derek shows up tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Cliffhanger. Will Derek make it back to the show? Will he survive this mutant wasp that popped out of the toilet?
And was assaulted on the air with the loudest noise that's been made. I thought Derek might punch through the plexiglass. It was close.
Oh, man.
We'll find out
We
along
need
with
to-
all of you. at
Tomorrow
11
there will
o'clock.
be an instant replay of that moment because that was awesome. We need to capture that forever.
Okay. That'll do it for us. The Mouseketeers, Jake and Connor and Parker, they're coming up next.
Be love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, and wonderful Thursday, and watch out for wasp, all right? Make that the word today. Watch out for wasp. I love you. See you. Peace.